Chapter 237. When Yu Qianqiu arrived at Myriad Flower House's side courtyard loft, the Allure Beauty immediately tossed a jade archive to him. Yu Qianqiu inserted his divine sense into the jade archive and took a look. To his surprise, it was a topographic map. Based on the markings, it was clearly located in a deep mountain not far from the 100 Flowers Valley. Yu Qianqiu asked, "Mistress, what is this?" The Allure Beauty was lazily lying on her side on the soft couch. Her body was moving up and down. She supported her cheek with one hand and said with a smile, "There is a small village there. The people in the village rely on hunting for a living. There used to be a cave deep in the mountains nearby. However, for some reason, the cave suddenly disappeared more than 10 years ago. It wasn't until the day Ong Kwangsung was attacked that a villager accidentally discovered the cave reappeared and saw hundreds of people entering it. The villager thought it was strange and wanted to see who those people were. However, when he got closer, he discovered that the cave had disappeared again. When my men arrived, they discovered that the cave had been sealed off by a formation." Yu Qianqiu waved the jade archive in his hand and asked, "The small village that Mistress mentioned is here?" The temptress nodded coquettishly from her couch. "Mistress, are you saying that the attack on Ong Kwangsung has something to do with the 100 Flowers Valley?" Yu Qianqiu frowned. Speaking of the 100 Flowers Valley, he recalled the 4 treasures of the Snow Valley that were auctioned off by the Wu clan. That Yan Xueqi was very mysterious. "I don't know if it has anything to do with the 100 Flowers Valley, but I'm guessing that the incident with Ong Kwangsung must have something to do with these hundreds of people. The location of the cave is in your jade archive. If you're interested, you can go check it out yourself." The temptress smiled. Yu Qianqiu put away the jade archive and clicked his tongue. "Mistress, you're amazing indeed. You even know what happened in a small village in the secular world." "Stop flattering me. If you have the time to flatter me, you might as well massage my legs." The Allure Beauty giggled. As she spoke, a fair and plump jade-like leg stretched out from the red muslin. In the end, Yu Qianqiu was so embarrassed that he found a random excuse and ran away. He was afraid of his mistress. If this continued, he reckoned that one day he would be tempted to the point where he would lose his sense of propriety. 2 days later, Yu Qianqiu was sitting in the main hall of the general's mansion's back garden. He was tapping on the table and counting the time. In one more day, it would be the new talent assembly on Fuxian Island. However, the people who were supposed to come were not here yet. Unknowingly, the sky had already darkened. Xueqi hurriedly walked in and said, "Boss, my father wants to see you." Yu Qianqiu laughed coldly in his heart. "Still putting on airs in front of me? I don't care what great general you are." He crossed his legs and leisurely shook his head, saying, "I'm not going." Xueqi was startled. He didn't expect that his boss wouldn't give him face and was begging him. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and interrupted, "Don't say any more. If your father really wants to see me, ask him to come over personally. I don't want to interfere in his matters. Seeing him is already giving you face." "Boss you. Sigh." Xueqi stomped his feet and turned to leave. Not long later, Xueqi led a tall and sturdy middle-aged man in. It was the pillar of the state general, Xueqi. Yu Qianqiu sat on the chair and didn't move. He smiled and sized up the person who came. This great general was wearing a plain robe, but it couldn't conceal his imposing aura. Especially that domineering aura. It was obvious that he had been in a high position for a long time and tempered by blood and iron. The two of them sized each other up. Xueqi, who was at the side, felt a little awkward. The introduction was already a little redundant. At this moment, a person slowly walked out from the back of the main hall. The burly Guan Yu, who wore green robes and a green hat, stood at Yu Qianqiu's side with an extraordinary air and a sword at his waist. Guan Yu raised his hand and stroked his long beard. He narrowed his eyes coldly at Xueqi. Guan Yu's bearing was rare in the world. Coupled with the fact that he had led troops in Utopia for many years, there was nothing to say about his bearing. Xueqi took a glance and cheered inwardly, "What a great man!" However, Xueqi felt that Guan Yu looked familiar. He didn't know where he had seen him before. However, the atmosphere of his father and his boss opposing each other made him feel a little uncomfortable. Yu Qianqiu, on the other hand, was a little displeased with Xueqi's dignified appearance. Therefore, he got the more dignified Guan Yu to hold the fort. Yu Qianqiu looked at the anxious Shi Shaotian and looked like he was giving him face. He stood up and cupped his hands at Shi Wenguang. Pillar of the State General, I've heard a lot about you. Shi Wenguang also cupped his fists and said, I've also heard a lot about Mr. Yu's fame in the cultivation world. I didn't expect you to be a guest in my residence. Oh, does the general know about the cultivation world as well? Yu Qianqiu was a little surprised. He looked at Shi Shaotian. It seemed like Shi Shaotian didn't know much about him in the cultivation world. Mr. saved my son in Ong Guangceng and then joined Fuxian Island. He beat up the grandson of Ong Guangceng's sect leader in 100 Flowers Valley. He beat up the grandson of Daluo Sect's sect leader in Hat Island. After that, he killed the grandson of Ong Guangceng's sect leader. Now, he's been expelled from Fuxian Island, causing a storm in the cultivation world. Some people even suspect that the looting of Daluo sect and Ong Guangceng's spirit stone mines, as well as the extermination of Ong Guangceng's entire family, was also done by Mr. Everyone in the cultivation world knows about what Mr. has done. Shi Wenguang revealed Yu Qianqiu's deeds in the cultivation world as if he was familiar with them. Yu Qianqiu and Guan Yu looked at each other. They clapped and smiled. Amazing. As expected of the pillar of the nation. Even the matters of the cultivation world can't be hidden from you. Shi Wenguang also smiled. Mr. took a stroll in the courtyard when the entire cultivation world put a bounty on his head, but no one could do anything to him. I'm also very impressed. Shi Shaotian was puzzled. Father, I don't know about these things. How did you know? After you joined the cultivation world, I spent a lot of manpower and money to finally get to know a few rogue cultivators. My purpose was to understand your situation. Who knew that they were just SOSO in the cultivation world? I accidentally learned about Mr. Yu's name from them. Although I don't know much about the cultivation world, I can see that they admire Mr. very much. Mr. seems to be a legend in the cultivation world, Shi Wenguang explained. It's just a bandit's name. It's not worth mentioning. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and smiled bitterly. I wonder if the rogue cultivators that you know about me in the general's residence? Shi Wenguang understood that he was afraid that the rogue cultivators would leak the secret of him being in the general's residence. He immediately waved his hand. Don't worry, mister. I understand some things. If Mister's whereabouts are leaked, our Shi family will be involved in the disputes of the cultivation world. That will be a disaster. Seeing that Shi Wenguang understood everything, Yu Qianqiu smiled. Let's get back to the main topic. Why did you want to see me? I have a lot of troops in my hands. Some people are already panicking. I'm afraid that a storm is coming for me. Mr. wants my son to bring a message to me. Don't you want to help me? Shi Wenguang said indifferently. It's easy to talk to smart people. Yu Qianqiu turned his head and asked, What does the general plan to do? Peace is decided by the general. I won't allow the general to see peace. Mister's words hit the nail on the head. My only mistake wasn't pacifying the 6 nations. As long as the war continues, my Shi family might be able to survive for a long time. Now, I'm afraid that I will have to hand over my military power. I'm afraid that some people won't let my Shi family off even after I hand over my military power. This is also the reason why I've been hesitating for the past few days. Shi Wenguang's words could be considered honest. Haha. Since you came to see me today, you must have made up your mind. That's good. You're a smart man, so I won't beat around the bush. Yu Qianqiu's expression turned solemn. The military power is your capital to protect your family. You can't hand it over. In short, you must control your troops. Once the opportunity comes, you must directly replace the Li dynasty. Shi Shaotian was dumbfounded. His father frowned. That's not difficult. It's just that the Li family has the support of the cultivation world supporting Immortals Island. Does Mr. have a way to resolve this worry? The cultivation world won't interfere in the secular world's affairs. General only needs to conserve your energy and don't stir up trouble. Supporting Immortals Island won't brazenly interfere in the secular world's affairs. Otherwise, they won't be able to explain themselves in the cultivation world. As for some small troubles, there will naturally be people to resolve them for you. When the opportunity comes, I will inform you to mobilize the army. Yu Qianqiu smiled. Mister, why are you helping my Shi family? Shi Wenguang finally voiced out his doubts. First, I won't ignore Xiaotian's troubles. Second, supporting Immortals Island has been the #1 in the cultivation world for a long time. It's time for someone else to take over. Third, I want my family to have a peaceful life. Yu Qianqiu smiled. Is General satisfied with this explanation? At this moment, Shi Youqian's voice came from outside. Is father in? The Imperial Preceptor is here. Chapter 238. The few people in the hall exchanged glances. Shi Wenguang frowned and said, "What is he doing here?" Grand Preceptor. This is a forbidden area. Before Shi Yutian could finish his sentence, he heard another person snort coldly. Following that, Shi Youqian's pleading voice could be heard. Grand Preceptor. Grand Preceptor. Shi Wenguang looked at Yu Qianqiu. Seeing that the latter nodded, he shouted, "Yutian, let him in." At the same time, Yu Qianqiu said to Guan Yu, "Yuncheng, step aside." After saying that, he sent him back to Utopia. The Shi father and son, who were watching the door, did not notice Guan Yu's sudden disappearance. Shi Yutian accompanied an old man with a sword on his back in fear and trepidation. The latter walked past them arrogantly and arrived at the top of the hall. He then turned around to size them up. Yu Qianqiu, who was dressed like a servant, did not attract his attention. His gaze landed on Shi Xiaotian and paused. He said with slight surprise, "General Shi, this must be the third young master." He could clearly see through Shi Xiaotian's cultivation, but he could not see through Yu Qianqiu. That's right. Shi Wenguang did not hold back. With Yu Qianqiu here, he more or less had some confidence. Although he did not know how powerful Yu Qianqiu was, he could tell from the itinerant cultivators he knew that Yu Qianqiu should be someone important in the cultivation world. His abilities should not be too bad. Unbeknownst to him, Yu Qianqiu's cultivation was only at the middle stage of the core formation realm. It was far inferior to the Grand Preceptor's early-stage nascent soul cultivation. Yutian, leave us first. Shi Wenguang seemed to sense that the Grand Preceptor had come with ill intentions. He first ordered the civil official's son, who could not be of much help, to leave. The Grand Preceptor looked at Shi Xiaotian and stroked his beard. I didn't expect the third young master of the general's residence to be at the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. This is really surprising. May I know which sect you are from? He had to ask clearly. He was here on a mission. It would not be good if he offended some powerful sect. My son is just a rogue cultivator. He doesn't belong to any sect. Shi Wenguang naturally wouldn't say that his son was Ong Quantsung's son. Even if he said it now, it would be useless. Ong Quantsung's family had already been exterminated. It would be shameful to say it. Moreover, his son had escaped and returned. He cupped his fists and said, "Imperial Preceptor, what brings you here so late at night?" Hearing that he was just a rogue cultivator, the State Preceptor's attitude became a little more arrogant. He looked at Shi Wenguang with an expressionless face and said, "His Majesty has a message for me to pass on to you." His Majesty said that there are people who are denouncing General for raising troops for self-importance. Initially, I did not want to pay attention to them. However, the denouncing has been incessant these few days and it seems to be getting more and more intense. I am deeply disturbed by it. On second thought, for the peace of the imperial court and your reputation, it might not be a bad thing for you to hand over your military power. So I sent the imperial advisor to persuade you not to disappoint me. General Shi, I have conveyed His Majesty's decree. What do you think? His Majesty is still waiting for me to report back. The State Preceptor stared at Shi Wenguang and said coldly. Shi Wenguang glanced at Yu Qianqiu and sneered, "I don't know what wrong I have done that His Majesty wants to take away my military power. What if I am not willing to hand it over?" The State Preceptor said with a smile. His Majesty also said that General has worked hard for many years and has made great contributions. It is better for you to return from the border early to rest. If General really wants to disobey my good intentions, the State Preceptor can handle it according to the circumstances. Shi Wenguang glared at him and a murderous aura rose. He said in a deep voice, "How does the State Preceptor intend to handle it according to the circumstances?" The State Preceptor laughed sinisterly. "General Shi, since the words have been spoken, I will tell you clearly. Either you take the initiative to resign from His Majesty during the morning assembly tomorrow, or I will execute you, the traitor who disobeyed His Majesty's orders right now. You can choose between the two." General Sure, I believe you are aware of my methods. Don't count on luck. Hee. I am dying of laughter. When there is no tiger in the mountain, the monkey acts as the king. Since when did supporting a mortal island have such an arrogant person? He is even more arrogant than Feng Xiangtian. Yu Qianqiu no longer had the appearance of a servant with his head lowered. He chuckled with his hands behind his back. As soon as Yu Qianqiu spoke, Shi Wenguang's heart that was hanging in the balance was at ease. He cupped his hands at him and said, "Mister, how do you think I should reply to the state preceptor?" The state preceptor was looking at the servant in front of him in shock. This person actually knew about supporting Immortal Island and sect master Feng Xiangtian? Yu Qianqiu stared at him coldly and put on a fake smile. What bullshit T state preceptor? Reply my ass. Who exactly are you? The state preceptor's tone was slightly flustered. At first, he thought that the other party was an ordinary person. Only now did he realize that it was because he couldn't see through the other party's cultivation. He was originally a nascent soul realm cultivator of supporting Immortal Island. On the path of cultivation, there was no hope for him to improve, so he came to the secular world to be the state preceptor. This state preceptor might seem impressive in the eyes of the secular world, but in the eyes of the disciples of supporting Immortal Island, it was a place that they weren't willing to come to. Which cultivator would be willing to act like a watchdog and protect a mortal? So what if that mortal was the emperor? As long as one had a bit of cultivation, it was easy for them to enjoy anything they wanted in the secular world. However, those with low cultivation couldn't come, and those with high cultivation couldn't be bothered to come. Thus, every generation of state preceptor, supporting Immortal Island would choose an average nascent soul realm cultivator. To put it bluntly, if the people from the cultivation world wanted to cause trouble, how could a nascent soul realm cultivator stop them? In short, as long as supporting Immortal Island didn't fall, the dynasty that it supported wouldn't fall. It was the duty of the cultivators sent to protect the emperor. However, it was a disgrace to the supporting Immortal Island to act like a lackey to the emperor. Humph! Yu Qianqiu snorted and said proudly with his hands behind his back, "Yu Qianqiu." "Ah, you are Yu Qianqiu?" State preceptor exclaimed and his face turned pale. The person in front of him was actually Yu Qianqiu, who caused chaos in the cultivation world. He didn't expect to meet him. He didn't know whose cultivation was higher, but a person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. How could a person who could kill sect leader Ong Guangceng be someone with an undeserved reputation? The long sword on his back was already in his hand. He looked at Yu Qianqiu and hurriedly retreated to the door. Shi Wenguang revealed a trace of surprise. Although he had heard of Yu Qianqiu's deeds, he didn't have a direct understanding of it. He didn't expect that Yu Qianqiu's name could scare the state preceptor to this extent. Shi Xiaotian's face was filled with envy. Boss had actually become so powerful after leaving him for so many years. Yu Qianqiu closed in step by step and sneered, "Since you know my name, do you think I will let you go?" With a hoo sound, a ball of bright red flames suddenly ignited around his body. The surrounding wooden furniture and other things were immediately roasted to the point of sizzling and emitting smoke, as if they were going to catch on fire at any time. Shi Wenguang, who was at the back, was on the verge of collapsing from the high temperature. He couldn't even breathe through his nose and mouth. Shi Xiaotian immediately released his vital energy to protect his father and retreat far away. However, from the looks of it, he wouldn't be able to hold on for long. Yu Qianqiu didn't expect the fire to be so powerful. He immediately suppressed the temperature of the fire. Otherwise, not only would the house burn, but even the state pillar general would also be roasted. He had already become a man of fire, but he was still sneering in the fire. It made everyone's hair stand on end. What kind of magic art was this? The state preceptor was already dumbfounded. By the time he reacted and wanted to run, he only saw a red light flash past on both sides. The door had already been sealed by a sea of fire. He looked to his left, right and roof. There was no fire on the ground, but he didn't know how to burrow underground. Since he was forced to this point, he could only give it his all. There was no point in being afraid. The flying sword in his hand flashed and turned into a cold light that shot towards Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly and pointed with his finger. A pillar of fire shot towards the flying sword. However, the state preceptor's cultivation was much higher than Yu Qianqiu's. The flying sword immediately forced Yu Qianqiu's pillar of fire back. However, the fire released by the latter was too powerful. When the flying sword was about a meter away from Yu Qianqiu, it had already turned into liquid metal and flowed on the ground. Yu Qianqiu immediately swung his palm towards the state preceptor. He clenched his fist and the surrounding wall of fire wrapped around the state preceptor. Ah! The state preceptor didn't even manage to scream before he turned into nothingness. When Yu Qianqiu opened his fist again, the raging fire was quickly sucked back into his palm. A pile of ashes belonging to the state preceptor scattered on the ground. Chapter 239. After restraining the flames, Yu Qianqiu felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. This was the first time he used his own strength to kill an original infant stage cultivator. He didn't expect it to be so easy. After reaching the middle stage of core formation, his ability to control fire had improved. The few guards of the general's mansion were standing outside at this time. The commotion just now had alarmed them, but as soon as they arrived outside, they saw that the raging fire had sealed the door. When they saw a flaming man inside putting away the raging fire, they all looked at each other in dismay. Xueqi stepped out and waved his hand. The guards bowed and jumped over the wall. Yu Qianqiu of the cultivation world lives up to his name. My horizons have been broadened today. Xueqi stepped back and clapped his hands in amazement. He didn't have the chance to see such a scene usually. Amazing! Amazing! Xueqi exclaimed in admiration as he touched the furniture that was already giving off the smell of burnt wood. Yu Qianqiu wasn't going to be blinded by the father and son's praise. He said solemnly, "There's no time to lose. General, leave the city and meet up with the army outside. It's best to return to the western border tonight." This. Xueqi looked outside and hesitated. Knowing that he was worried about his family, Yu Qianqiu shouted, "Call your mother, brother and sister-in-law over." Understood. Xueqi ran out quickly. "General, please listen to me. First, as long as you return to the western border as soon as possible, the Shi residence will be the safest place. Second, with your family here, the emperor will know that you won't rebel. He won't dare to provoke you. Third, when you return, try not to stir up trouble with the imperial court. Just do what you need to do, just do what you need to do. In short, make sure that the 2 million soldiers are firmly in your hands. As long as the Li family dynasty is not in a precarious situation, supporting Immortal Island will not interfere with worldly affairs. This will give us time to decide the outcome of the battle." Yu Qianqiu quickly analyzed the situation. "Sigh. My Shi clan has been loyal for generations. I didn't think it would end up like this." Xueqi sighed and a trace of decisiveness flashed across his face. He nodded. "Mr. is right. It's decided." "It's good that General understands." After Yu Qianqiu finished speaking, he waved his hand, and a group of black-clothed masked men appeared on both sides. He had just contacted Guan Yu with his divine sense and arranged this. Xueqi looked at the two sides in astonishment. He had led troops for a long time, so he could naturally feel the military temperament of these two teams. Yu Qianqiu didn't explain to him, so he didn't ask. However, Yu Qianqiu's extraordinary ability to make people appear out of thin air made him more confident. Not long after, the Shi family arrived at the back garden that was normally off-limits. When they saw the two groups of black-clothed men, they were shocked. Everyone except Xueqi was baffled to learn that the great general was going to rush back to the western border overnight. Wasn't he coming all the way here to attend the royal wedding? Why did they have to go back so soon? In the face of his wife's earnest inquiry, Xueqi felt a little guilty. However, sometimes there was no need for his family to worry too much about what a man did, so there was no need for him to explain. Xueqi glanced at the members of the Gu family and shouted, "Guards!" 7 or 8 people immediately appeared from outside. They were the Shi family's henchmen, and they walked over to greet the great general. Xueqi nodded and suddenly bowed to Yu Qianqiu. "I'll leave the safety of my family in Mr.'s hands." He was entrusting his family to Yu Qianqiu in front of everyone, causing the group of people to look at each other in dismay. They didn't know what he was doing. Only Xueqi knew that from today onwards, the Shi family would embark on the path of rebellion. Yu Qianqiu supported him and said sincerely, "The important matter is the most important. Is there anything else the general wants to say to the family?" Xueqi shook his head. "There's no time to lose, let's go." Yu Qianqiu nodded and shouted to a group of black-clothed masked men, Team 1, spread out and hide around the general's residence. Before I return, kill anyone who enters or leaves the general's residence without mercy. The moment this order was given, the women immediately felt a little alarmed, not knowing what was going on. Yes. The team of black-clothed masked men saluted and quickly shot out. Team 2. Follow me. After giving the order, a flying sword flew out, and Yu Chen-cho directly carried the general and flew out. The remaining black-clothed men followed. The head of the family had left just like that, and a group of people who could fly suddenly appeared. The remaining people felt that something was wrong. Shi Xiaotian smiled and comforted them. Everyone, don't worry. It's nothing. Father has urgent military affairs and has to rush back to deal with it. Bao Wanshi and Situ Hui looked at each other with complicated expressions. The army that had been stationed in the western suburbs of the capital for the past few days suddenly broke camp. The army set off, and Shi Wenguang ordered 3,000 cavalrymen to stay 1 li away from the army. 3,000 cavalrymen led the way, and the army of 10,000 rushed west overnight. Yu Chen-cho, on the other hand, sent a team to protect Shi Wenguang and gave a death order that Shi Wenguang must be safely sent back to the army camp at the western border. In Fuxian Island's myriad fragrance garden, a man and woman were burning dry firewood. Yu Chen-cho stayed in the general's residence for a day, and seeing that there was no movement from the imperial court, he reckoned that there was no big problem. However, he still carefully set up defenses in the general's residence before coming to Fuxian Island. After finding out the location of the new Excellence Assembly, Yu Chen-cho changed into Fuxian Island's clothes and swaggered over. However, when people walked towards him, he would still avoid them, and thus took many detours. Fortunately, he was still familiar with Fuxian Island, so he wouldn't get lost. He turned left and right until he reached the seaside, and he reckoned that he wouldn't meet anyone. Who knew that after walking a few steps, he would faintly hear someone calling out, Yu Chen-cho, scaring him. He looked around but didn't see anyone. Then, he heard a voice that seemed to be coming from the other side of the rock. After listening carefully, it didn't seem like someone was calling him, but someone was talking about him. The voice was somewhat familiar. Thus, he sneakily climbed up the rock and stuck his head out to take a look. He was delighted when he saw who it was. It was none other than his old acquaintances, Ko Xuehua, Murong Xian, and Mei Yinhong from Myriad Fragrance Garden, Xiao Wanqing from Enron Pavilion, and Gu Qingyun from Cultivation Pavilion. Because these people were friends with Yu Chen-cho, they often came in contact with each other. After Yu Chen-cho was expelled from the sect, they would often gather together to reminisce about Yu Chen-cho. Yu Chen-cho's current position just happened to be downwind, so he could hear their conversation. After listening carefully, it turned out that the topic revolved around him. The concern in their words touched the eavesdroppers. TSK. This brat Gu Qingyun's luck with women is not shallow. One person with 4 beauties. Should I go out and meet them? Yu Chen-cho was somewhat hesitant, but in the end, he clenched his teeth and stood on the rock. Who is this? They are actually hiding here talking about love. A voice came, and the 5 people sitting on the beach were immediately startled. They abruptly stood up and looked back. A person on the rock was smiling at them, and they couldn't believe their eyes. Xiao Wanqing said in surprise, Yu Chen-cho, it's you. She covered her mouth with her hand and looked around carefully. Hee. Yu Chen-cho jumped down from the rock with a mischievous smile, and walked towards them. He said with a smile, Everyone is in a good mood. You actually came here to talk about love. Gu Qingyun, aren't you a little too unscrupulous to enjoy the 4 beauties alone? Nonsense. Xiao Wanqing directly kicked his leg, but the joy on her face couldn't be concealed. Ko Xuehua looked around again and said worriedly, Yu Chen-cho, how dare you return to supporting a mortal island? Beauty Ko, do you think there's a place in this world that I don't dare to go? Yu Chen-cho said arrogantly. The few of them smiled non-committally. Murong Xian, who had always been a man of few words, suddenly exclaimed, Yu Chen-cho, how did you get in here? Could it be that even the supporting Immortal Island's protective formation couldn't stop you? Yu Chen-cho still replied arrogantly, Beauty Murong, do you think there's a place in this world that can stop me? He then waved at Mei Yinhong and said, Mimi, you've become much prettier. Gu Qingyun looked at his supporting Immortal Island uniform and couldn't help but laugh. Don't tell me you're still wearing supporting Immortal Island's uniform to swindle people outside? It made the women laugh again. Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes at him and said, "Boy, don't forget what you said in the devil's domain. You said that as long as you can leave the devil's domain alive, you'll follow me. This time, I'm here to fulfill my promise." Gu Qingyun was stunned. He really did say something like that in the past. The women were also stunned. They thought to themselves, is he really here for this? These casual words made Yu Qianqiu think for a moment. Thus, he said with a meaningful smile, "Is there anyone else who wants to follow me? It's good to be with me. I guarantee that you'll be able to eat and drink well every day." They looked at each other. Xiao Wanqing asked timidly, "Yu Qianqiu, will it be dangerous to follow you? I heard that the entire cultivation world is after you." Chapter 240. Danger? What danger? Don't you see that I'm alive and well? Yu Qianqiu smiled at them and said, "Do you want to leave with me?" The few of them looked at each other, not knowing how to answer. It should be known that Yu Qianqiu was expelled from the sect. If they left now, they would be treated as traitors and it would be worse than being expelled from the sect. Although they have a good relationship with Yu Qianqiu, they wouldn't betray the sect for him because the consequences would be too severe. If supporting Immortal Island wanted to kill the traitors would have a miserable ending because supporting Immortal Island was too powerful. Ko Shuahua frowned and said, "Yu Qianqiu, we can't leave with you. You should leave supporting Immortal Island quickly. Don't worry, we will pretend that we never saw you and won't tell anyone that you were here." The others nodded silently and expressed their agreement to Ko Shuehua's words. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Yu Qianqiu laughed and said, "Look at you guys. I was just casually saying it and you guys took it seriously. Why don't you think about it? It's hard for me to come in alone. How can I bring you guys out?" Hearing this, the few of them heaved a sigh of relief. Xiao Wanqing said, "Yu Qianqiu, don't joke about this in the future. It's making everyone feel awkward." "Then why did you come to supporting Immortal Island this time?" Gu Qingyun asked. "Isn't there a new talent assembly today?" "I purposely came to take a look." Yu Qianqiu laughed and said, "You are mistaken. Today is the day that all the sects are staying. The proper competition is tomorrow." Xiao Wanqing rushed to answer. Once the atmosphere was relaxed, she started to jump around again. "So it's like that." Yu Qianqiu muttered to himself. Ko Shuahua sighed and said, "It's not convenient for us to stay with you. You should leave as soon as possible. Once you are discovered, it will be hard for you to leave. Let's go. Gathering too many people here will only bring trouble to Yu Qianqiu." The last sentence was directed at the others. Ko Shuehua's cultivation was the highest among them. According to the seniority of the supporting Immortals Island, she was the teacher of the others. No one objected to what she said. Gu Qingyun patted Yu Qianqiu's shoulder and sighed, "Then take care of yourself." Yu Qianqiu waved his hand at them and chuckled, it's fine, you guys can leave first." Just as he waved his hand, the five of them felt a wave of divine sense envelop them. Before they could react, the five of them on the beach felt their vision blur, and their surroundings changed. A man's heart is hard to fathom. Don't blame me. If you had agreed earlier, I wouldn't have had the heart to let you suffer the pain of having your natal primordial spirits forcibly removed. Sigh. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and sighed as he muttered to himself for a while. Then, he walked along the beach. The new Excellence Assembly was on the outer island of the supporting Immortals Island. The distance between the two islands wasn't far and there was a stone bridge connecting them. Even though it was only a small island, it was enough to welcome guests from all over. There were many courtyards built on the island. They were all prepared for such an event. Naturally, it was for the convenience of the various sections. Yu Qianqiu hid at a place not far from the bridge. When there were no more supporting Immortals Island disciples crossing, he swaggered over. Actually, this short distance of tens of meters could be crossed easily with his sword. However, he had stayed on the supporting Immortals Island before. He knew that this seemingly harmless distance might be hiding something strange. Many people were looking at the world's #1 supporting Immortals Island from the beach. They were all disciples of other sections. Yu Qianqiu walked through them openly. He could tell that most of them were Qi Refinement Realm disciples. As long as they weren't supporting Immortals Island disciples, they wouldn't be able to recognize him. Under the envious gazes of the various sect's disciples, Yu Qianqiu wore the supporting Immortals Island's uniform and walked around with his head held high. Occasionally, there would be flying artifacts from other sects descending from the sky. Then, supporting Immortals Island disciples would immediately go over to arrange accommodations. After familiarizing himself with the surrounding terrain, the setting sun had already dyed the entire sea golden. Those who were supposed to come from the various sects had arrived. The supporting Immortals Island sent disciples to invite the various sect leaders and elders to welcome them. Naturally, the accompanying disciples wouldn't be able to participate in such an event. After watching the various sect leaders and elders leave for the supporting Immortals Island, Yu Qianqiu chuckled. He circulated his energy to force out his cultivation base. He knew that his body was unique. If he didn't want to display his cultivation base, others wouldn't be able to tell. However, he wanted to let others see it now. After making all the necessary preparations, he was about to execute his plan. He took out a jade archive and walked toward a sect's courtyard. Although the supporting Immortals Island was safe, the various sects still sent 1 or 2 people to guard the courtyard's entrance. Judging from their uniform, Yu Qianqiu didn't recognize them. They should be from a small sect. The 2 disciples guarding the entrance saw that he was wearing the supporting Immortals Island's uniform. Since they couldn't see through his cultivation base, they immediately bowed and said, "The disciples of the Rising Sun sect greet you, Senior. May I know what brings you here?" So they're from the Rising Sun sect. Yu Qianqiu didn't force his way in. He stopped and waved the jade archive in his hand. With a smile on his face, he said, "I've been ordered to verify the members of the various sections. I'll have to trouble Rising Sun sect's fellow sect members to cooperate with me. Please ask the disciples in the courtyard to come out for a moment. It won't take up too much of your time." His attitude was amiable and his words were courteous. The 2 disciples guarding the entrance could feel the demeanor of the world's #1 sect. One of the disciples guarding the entrance immediately bowed and said, "Senior, please wait for a moment. I'll first ask for instructions from the sect's elder who stayed behind." Yu Qianqiu raised his hand and gestured for the disciple to go ahead. He smiled and said, "It's all right. I'll just wait." The more courteous he was, the more the disciple dared not delay. He immediately ran into the house. Not long after, a group of people came out from the courtyard. There were at least 30 of them, and all of them gathered in the courtyard. They were probably the people who were preparing to participate in the competition. Finally, an old man walked out from the house. The old man glanced at Yu Qianqiu. Seeing that he was only in the middle stage of the core formation realm, he waved his hand and said, "Let him in." Yu Qianqiu couldn't see through the old man's cultivation base. Obviously, it was higher than his. He immediately bowed and said, "Disciple of the Pavilion of Cultivation, Gu Qingyun, greet Senior." The old man frowned and said, "Verify the members of the various sects? I've never seen supporting Xian Island having such a rule in the past years. Why is there such a rule this year?" Yu Qianqiu said respectfully, "It's just that the cultivation world isn't very peaceful these days. Our sect is worried that some small fries will take this opportunity to cause trouble. This is also for the safety of all sections. Please forgive us, Senior." His actions and tone gave the old man enough face. Yes, supporting Xian Island is really thoughtful. The old man nodded and said, "Then hurry up." "Senior, I want to ask again. Are all the disciples of the Rising Sun sect here? After I've registered them in the Jade Archive, I'll make a copy for the disciples guarding the sect. Don't miss any of them to avoid unnecessary trouble," Yu Qianqiu said. His words were reasonable. If not all the disciples were here, the guards of supporting Xian Island would find out that they had sent more people. At the very least they would be interrogated. The old man immediately turned around and looked at the disciples who had gathered together. He nodded and said, "That's right. Except for the elders who attended the banquet, all the other disciples are here. Then I'll start now. Please forgive me, Senior." Yu Qianqiu pretended to pick up the jade archive in his hand. He opened his palm towards the crowd and released his divine sense to envelop everyone in the courtyard. When the old man felt the other party's divine sense enveloping him, he frowned. What was this? He immediately released his divine sense to block Yu Qianqiu's divine sense. However, when he thought about how he had already agreed to cooperate with Yu Qianqiu, He gave up resisting. Who knew that when he retracted his divine sense, the scene before his eyes would suddenly change? He didn't know where he was anymore. Looking at the empty courtyard, Yu Qianqiu sneered. He turned around and headed towards the next sect. There were more than 200 sects participating in the New Excellence Assembly every year. This was a chance for some of the smaller sects to obtain the foundation building pill. The reason why the Qi refining stage disciples were allowed to compete was to reflect fairness. At this time, the disciples of the various sects were still at the starting point. There was no situation where the smaller sects would suffer too much. Yu Qianqiu walked around the courtyards of the various sects, enthusiastically serving them. He was extremely busy. Bai Suzhen and Guan Yu, who were also in Utopia, were also extremely busy. People were constantly being sent into the formation that Bai Suzhen had set up. Guan Yu and his subordinates were dumbfounded. This leader was too amazing. They didn't know what she was doing. Looking at the clothes that the people were wearing, they were obviously disciples of the various sections. They really didn't know how the leader managed to do it. It was too unbelievable. After visiting more than 100 sects, they realized that the elders and managers of the various sects who attended the banquet were gradually returning. Yu Qianqiu immediately hid in a corner and quickly changed his clothes. He was already wearing the standard hero outfit. A small black flag was stuck in the courtyard with a ding sound. Then, he mounted his sword and flew towards the seaside. The elders and managers of the various sects, as well as the elders of supporting Immortals Island who escorted them, immediately noticed this uninvited guest. Dongfang Chang'ao, who was in the crowd, shouted, "Where are you from? How dare you trespass on my supporting Immortals Island? Where do you think you're going?" His figure flashed as he quickly chased after the intruder. Chapter 241. Immediately, a few people flew after him. The people from the other sects exchanged glances. The masked man in black had come out from the courtyards of their sections. Feeling that something was wrong, they immediately fled to their sect's residences. Dongfang Chang'ao and a few others caught up in the blink of an eye. Yu Qianqiu turned his hand and scattered a yellow light. Hundreds of astral breaching talismans flew towards the people chasing after him. The expressions of Dongfang Chang'ao and the others changed. They naturally knew what those talismans were. Although they couldn't hurt them, being hit by so many astral breaching talismans would definitely not feel good. "Hi!" Dongfang Chang'ao shouted. A long sword suddenly appeared in his hand. Immediately, he slashed several times in the air. The sharp sword light collided with the astral breaching talismans. Boom! A deafening explosion sounded. After the people behind him caught up, they also slashed several times at the smoke caused by the explosions of the astral breaching talismans. Then, without stopping, they went straight through the smoke. Yu Qianqiu turned around and was shocked to see the people who went through the smoke. He didn't expect that the powerful astral breaching talismans could not stop them at all. In the blink of an eye, they had caught up again. Immediately, a large number of fire talismans were scattered, followed by a handful of smoke talismans, and then another handful of astral breaching talismans. For a moment, the sky was filled with flames. Then, white smoke filled the air. Followed by angry shouts, there was a rumbling explosion. Suddenly, a clear whistle was heard. A figure wrapped in a layer of white astral energy passed through the explosion and the smoke. It was Dongfang Chang'ao. Looking at his angry face, it was obvious that he was furious. He didn't care about anything and didn't fear an ambush. He used his strong cultivation to break through the obstacles. It seemed that he wouldn't stop until he caught the masked man in black. So powerful. Yu Qianqiu was shocked. But when he thought of his plan, he gritted his teeth and jumped towards the sea below him. There was no way Dongfang Chang'ao would let him get away so easily. The flying sword in his hand turned into a white light and shot out like lightning. When Yu Qianqiu saw this, he was almost scared out of his wits. The flying sword under his feet hurriedly shot out and he rushed towards the sea. Just as his flying sword shot out, the other party's flying sword arrived. Clang! A crisp sound. Yu Qianqiu's flying sword, infused with mystic gold sand, was split into pieces by the opponent's sword. However, it wasn't completely useless. It blocked the attack of the opponent's sword. However, the fierce attack from the sword slammed into Yu Qianqiu's back. Yu Qianqiu coughed out a mouthful of blood. He had wanted to jump into the sea of the attack, but he was hit by the attack and he fell even faster into the sea. Before Yu Qianchou fell into the sea, a jade archive fell from his body onto the beach. With a splash, Yu Qianchou was submerged in the sea. Dongfeng Chang'ao pointed with a sword in his hand. The flying sword leaped into the air and sped up. It fiercely shot towards the location where the man in black had fallen. Bang! The seawater was blasted high into the air. After that, the few people who followed behind also madly shot their flying swords into the sea. Several flying swords rose and fell, and the sea was immediately blasted into the sky. A large number of the fish in the sea immediately died and floated up to the surface. The few of them exchanged glances. Dongfeng Chang'ao nodded. They immediately took the flying swords in their hands and rushed into the sea, disappearing without a trace. Looking at their expressions, it seemed as if they wanted to see the person alive and the corpse dead. That made sense. What kind of place was supporting Immortal Island? What's more, in front of so many people from the various sects, a few Tribulation passing stage elders couldn't catch a mid-stage core formation cultivator. If word got out, they would surely die of laughter. Hua hua. The few of them jumped out of the sea and floated in the air. White steam rose from their soaked clothes and evaporated them in an instant. They all shook their heads with puzzled expressions. Not only did they not find the man in black, but they didn't even find his corpse. They didn't even see a single piece of his corpse. Dongfeng Chang'ao looked at the sea below him with a gloomy expression. His gaze fell on the jade archive that the man in black dropped on the beach and paused for a moment. His figure floated down to the beach and he sucked the jade archive into his hand. After he examined it with his divine sense, his expression immediately changed. From the beginning to the end, only a few moments had passed. At this moment, several hundred people rushed over from supporting Immortals Island. It was obvious that they were alarmed by the commotion caused by the battle. As soon as the several hundred people arrived, a few dozen people quickly flew in the air and looked around. The rest of the people landed on the beach. The person in the lead was the Pavilion of Cultivation's principal elder. Xueqi asked in a deep voice, "Chang'ao, what exactly happened?" Dongfeng Chang'ao immediately explained what happened. After listening, Xueqi's expression twitched as he looked at the few people around him. He sneered and said, "A few Tribulation passing stage elders couldn't even catch a core formation cultivator. What a joke. Elder O, don't be angry. Let me show you something." Dongfeng Chang'ao handed over the jade archive and frowned. "This fell off the man's body when I knocked him into the sea." "Humph." Xueqi snorted. It was obvious that he wasn't satisfied with Dongfeng Chang'ao's performance. However, he still took the jade archive and examined it with his divine sense. After reading it, his expression also changed. He frowned and said, "Are you sure it fell off the man's body?" "I can't be wrong." Dongfeng Chang'ao shook his head. The people of supporting Xian Island looked at each other in surprise. They didn't know what the two of them were talking about. Could it be that there was some secret in the jade archive? While everyone was silent, a roar came from the residences of the various sects on the island. Everyone was shocked. Xueqi shouted, "Leave a few people here to continue searching. The rest of you, follow me." Immediately, except for the few people who stayed behind, everyone else flew away. The residences of the various sects were in an uproar. Many people were shouting that the supporting Xian Island was up to no good. When Xueqi led a few hundred people to descend from the sky, the group of people was immediately stunned. The lineup of Fuxian Island was too strong. However, there were still many people who demanded an explanation from the supporting Xian Island. "Everyone, what exactly happened?" Xueqi cupped his hands at the crowd. Immediately, someone showed him a small black flag. Xueqi took it and unfolded it. The word hero was embroidered on it in gold. Xueqi frowned deeply. He suppressed the anger in his chest and saluted the crowd. What exactly happened? Therefore, more than 100 people from the various sects talked about the disappearance of their disciples. When the people of the supporting Immortal Island heard this, their expressions changed. If this was true, then this matter was going to be huge. There were more than 100 sects, and each sect had more than 30 people. In total, there were more than 3,000 people. To think that all of them had disappeared just like that. This was simply unimaginable. Xueqi, who was holding the black flag, didn't rush to declare his position. Instead, he asked his people to disperse and follow the sects whose disciples had disappeared to check their residences. It didn't take long for the results to come out. It was just as the sects had said. Not only could they not find their residences, but they also couldn't find them on the entire island. They had disappeared into thin air. Moreover, there was no trace of a fight at the residences. It was really strange. Could they have run into the supporting Xian Island? This was impossible. There were always people watching this place. How could a few thousand people not see them? Everyone, please wait for a moment. I will immediately report this matter to the sect leader. I believe the sect leader will give everyone a satisfactory explanation. After Xueqi finished speaking, he didn't care whether the sects agreed or not. He turned around and shouted, "The rest of you stay and protect the sections. Chang'ao, follow me to see the sect leader." 2 figures flew towards the Panglai pavilion. After Feng Xiongtian learned about what happened, he flew into a rage and smashed the table in front of him into pieces. He gritted his teeth and shouted in a low voice, "Hero, hero, who is this hero? How dare he offend Fuxian Island?" Chapter 242. He couldn't help but be angry. The new Excellence Assembly, which was held once every 10 years, was actually quite meaningless. How interesting could a competition between qi refining disciples be? The distribution of Foundation establishment pills could be distributed according to each sect's contribution. The reason why supporting Immortal Island never got tired of this was that it could reflect their status in the cultivation world. But now, the #1 sect in the world, supporting Immortal Island, was robbed right under their noses. Thousands of people didn't even know about it. Moreover, more than 100 sects were involved. How could supporting Immortal Island face the world if word of this got out? The most infuriating thing was that this hero was too arrogant. Not only did he touch the Da Luo sect and Ong Kwang Tsung, but now he even dared to touch supporting Immortal Island. This was intolerable. Investigate. Investigate thoroughly. I don't believe this hero can hide in the heavens. Feng Xiongtian roared. Xueqi and Dongfang Chang'ao looked at each other. The former handed over a jade archive and said, "Sect leader, you should take a look at this first." Chang'ao struck this down from the masked man. Feng Xiongtian's eyes were about to burst into flames. He angrily took the jade archive and examined it with his divine sense. In the blink of an eye, his expression softened. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the 2 of them. No one else has seen this before, right? His tone had already returned to normal. If there was something in this jade archive that could change Feng Xiongtian's attitude so quickly, it had to be Yu Qianzhou's doing. Actually, there wasn't much inside. He almost lost his life and caused such a huge commotion. He just wanted to leave the jade archive given to him by the Temptress of 100 Charms to supporting Immortal Island. The map on it indicated a location not far from the 100 Flowers Valley. Although the commotion was huge and the 3 of them were furious, they completely calmed down when the 100 Flowers Valley was involved. The Palace Lord of the 100 Flowers Palace was the daughter of the previous sect leader of supporting Immortal Island. Besides Xueqi, the 3 of them were the direct disciples of the previous sect leader, Guan Dinghai. Xueqi was also a member of the Guan clan. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had the chance to manage the cultivation pavilion. Feng Xiongtian's position as sect leader was supported by Guan Dinghai with the Guan clan's influence on supporting Immortal Island. Since this matter involved Guan Dinghai, the 3 of them did not dare to show their anger. In fact, the 3 of them had some suspicions. Could it be that the hero who caused such a commotion in the cultivation world was created by Guan Dinghai's daughter? If it was true, then the 3 of them wouldn't dare to make the decision. Even Feng Xiongtian wouldn't dare to make the decision. Feng Xiongtian clutched the jade archive in his hand and muttered to himself, "The 2 of you, follow me to Heavenly Will Pavilion to meet Master." The 3 of them dashed out of the window. Feng TB Feng Feng, TTU. From to say I said, Feng, TTT in. After reading through the jade archive, how could he not know what the 3 of them were thinking? They were afraid that this matter would implicate his daughter, so they came to ask for his advice on what to do next. Guan Dinghai pondered for a long time. Suddenly, he chuckled coldly. Looking at the sect leader's disciples, he said in a deep voice, "You don't have to worry about this matter. Investigate. Investigate thoroughly. If she really did it, quickly tell me." I will personally execute this evil woman and pretend that I never had this daughter. The three of them glanced at each other, and then Feng Xiongtian frowned and said, Master, I know senior sister well. If this matter is really related to the Flower Palace, then I don't believe senior sister would make a move against our supporting Immortal Island, and senior sister wouldn't make a move against our supporting Immortal Island. I'm more worried that it has something to do with that Yen fellow. Guan Dinghai glared at him and said, How many years has it been? You're still protecting her. Let me tell you, if this matter really has something to do with her, don't think about covering up for her. Quickly tell me. Feng Xiongtian showed an awkward expression. He bowed and said, Don't worry, master. I know what I'm doing. O.C. Hai and Dongfeng Chang'ao held back their laughter. They hadn't seen Feng Xiongtian's expression for many years. To be exact, they hadn't seen it since he became the sect leader. The two of them were insiders. Back then, Guan Dinghai really treated Feng Xiongtian like his own son. He had already intended to marry his daughter to Feng Xiongtian, and Feng Xiongtian liked it. Who knew that Yen Bugui of 10,000 demons would appear and capture Bai Hua Fairy's heart? Because of this, Feng Xiongtian was sad for a long time. With Guan Dinghai's words, the three of them returned. Feng Xiongtian handed the task of investigating this matter to Dongfeng Chang'ao. After Yu Qianchou escaped back to Utopia, he didn't go anywhere else. Instead, he hid in Guan Yu's room. The bloodstains on his clothes and his pale face gave Guan Yu a fright. It was his first time seeing Yu Qianchou injured to this extent. Yu Qianchou was afraid that Bai Suzhen and the others would worry, so he told him to keep quiet and hide in Guan Yu's room to recuperate. Fortunately, he had the golden bead, so he didn't have to worry too much no matter how serious his injuries were. Half a day later, although his injuries weren't completely healed, they were mostly healed. When he could move freely again, he was about to leave. Guan Yu anxiously pulled him back, but in return, Feng Xiongtian warned him not to tell anyone about his injuries. He then quietly left. The next place he appeared was the place where he killed Lu Zhongguang and the others. Now, whenever he arrived at a new place, he would use his blood essence to mark the next location so that it would be convenient for him to return again. After determining the direction, he quickly flew toward the location marked on the jade archive given to him by the temptress. He found a valley deep in the forest. After confirming that the entrance to the cave that was concealed by a formation was not far away, he didn't approach it. Instead, he quickly found a convenient place to observe and hid. He continued to recuperate as he observed. Naturally, there was a reason why he had risked his injuries to do something like this. First of all, the fake hero was very powerful. He probably wouldn't be able to defeat him if he fought him head-on. If he was really hiding here, he wouldn't do as the temptress had said and compete to see who was more powerful. Since there was such a powerful opponent around, he might as well find an even more powerful opponent for them. Supporting Xian Island was the best choice. He believed that supporting Xian Island wouldn't let the matter rest after suffering such a huge loss. It would be best if he could get them to help him investigate the truth. It would be even better if he could use supporting Xian Island to destroy the fake hero. After another half a day, his injuries were more or less healed. Yu Qianchou, who was sitting cross-legged on a pile of dried branches and weeds, started to feel anxious. Why weren't the people from supporting Xian Island here yet? Could it be that they didn't notice the jade archive he had left behind? With the cultivation of Dongfeng Chang'ao and the others, it was impossible for them not to notice it. Or was there another reason? Just as he was getting a little impatient, dozens of figures descended from the sky into the valley. Yu Qianchou held his breath and focused. His eyes lit up when he saw them. The one leading them was Dongfeng Chang'ao. He counted them carefully. Oh my! They actually sent out 50 Tribulation passing elders from the Pavilion of Cultivation at once. This was going to be interesting. Chapter 243. Yu Qianchou's face revealed a proud expression. The fact that the hero was able to sneak into supporting Xian Island and commit murder without anyone noticing clearly attracted the attention of supporting Xian Island. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent 50 Tribulation passing elders at once. If it were any other sect investigating this matter, they would definitely do it in secret. However, look at this hero. He didn't need to be sneaky. 50 people were openly here. It was obvious that they were prepared for a fight. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent so many old fellows. Dongfeng Chang'ao nodded at the crowd. Dozens of people immediately flashed in all directions and looked around. Yu Qianqiu quickly held his breath and hid among the weeds and withered trees like a hibernating animal. As expected, several divine senses swept past him. If it weren't for the mysterious effects of the golden pearl, he would have been discovered long ago. The group of people clearly didn't find anything suspicious. They gathered together again. Yu Qianqiu focused on their every move. Dongfeng Chang'ao strolled to the front of a mountain wall that was overgrown with vegetation. He exclaimed softly, "Elder Gong's son, you're an expert in formations. Come and take a look. Are there any formations or mechanisms here?" He was at the place indicated on the Jade Archive. If it weren't for the mark on the archive, he wouldn't have believed that there was something hidden here. He couldn't tell the difference between this place and the rest of the valley. The old man who was called walked over. After carefully examining the surrounding terrain, he pressed his hand on the mountain wall. He plucked a white ivy flower and sniffed it. He frowned and asked, "Elder Dongfeng, are you sure this is the place?" "Elder Gong's son, you mean?" Dongfeng Chang'ao's expression darkened. "Could it be that we've been fooled? There's nothing here." The people of supporting Xian Island looked at each other. They had mobilized so many people to come here. Could it be that they had been fooled? Yu Qianqiu, who could vaguely hear their conversation, found it strange. Logically, it shouldn't be possible. There was no reason for the alluring beauty to give him a fake map. At this moment, one of the people in the group walked over with a sword in his hand and said, "Maybe there's something behind this mountain wall. Let me cut it open to take a look." "Wait." Elder Gong's son stared blankly at the mountain wall. He pushed his hand and said, "There is something strange about this mountain wall, look." Everyone looked in the direction of his finger, and saw a white flower swaying in the wind on the green vine. But it was very ordinary. There were a lot of green vines and flowers in the valley. Everyone looked for a while but couldn't see anything. Seeing that no one understood, Elder Gong's son shook his head and said, "Watch carefully this time. I will pluck this flower. Pay attention to the green vine's reaction." After saying that, he casually plucked the white flower. After hearing his words, everyone paid close attention to the green vines on the mountain wall. After waiting for a while, a white flower suddenly appeared on the entwined green vine. It was still at the position where it was plucked. This time, everyone clicked their tongues in wonder. Someone exclaimed, "Could it be that this green vine is some sort of natural spiritual treasure? Could it be that the Jade Archive is a treasure map?" "No, that's not right." Elder Gong's son shook his head, as if remembering something. Dongfeng Chang'ao asked, "Elder Gong's son, what's not right?" Elder Gong's son regained his senses and sniffed the flower in his hand. He looked at the crowd and paused before saying, "It is rumored that in ancient times, there was a formation known as the North Pole Illusory Spirit Formation. The place where this formation was set up is extremely deceptive. It can absorb the spiritual energy of the heavens and earth and transform it into an illusion, merging with the surrounding scenery. No matter how high your cultivation base is, it will be difficult to discover the location of the formation. If I'm not wrong, someone must have laid down this formation. Fortunately, we have the map on the Jade Archive to guide us. Otherwise, no one would be able to tell that the scenery here is an illusion. But logically speaking, this formation should have been lost a long time ago. Why would it appear here? Humph. Looks like there's something special behind this mountain wall. Otherwise, who would set up a long-lost ancient formation here?" Dongfeng Chang'ao turned around and asked, "Elder Gong's son, do you have a way to break this formation? If it doesn't work, we'll just have to break it open by force. I'd like to see what kind of shameful things are hidden behind it." Elder Gong's son shook his head and smiled. For this formation to be famous in ancient times, it naturally has its own unique features. Although it doesn't possess any offensive capabilities, it is a top-notch defensive formation. Once the North Pole Illusory Spirit Formation is set up, it can merge with the spiritual energy of the heavens and earth, allowing it to grow and multiply endlessly. Just like the flower I plucked earlier, it will grow back after you pluck it. Similarly, once you break it open, it will immediately return to its original state. Furthermore, the more powerful the attack, the faster it will recover. Unless there's no longer enough spiritual energy in the world to support its operation, or the person who set up the formation decided to remove it. Gong's son, what kind of joke is this? How can the spiritual energy of the heavens and earth be cut off? It's even more impossible for the person who set up the formation to remove it. Do you think we're guests? Do you think they'll open the door to welcome us? The person who said he wanted to break open the formation said angrily. If this formation is so powerful, then wouldn't we have come here for nothing? Another person said. Elder Gong's son, do you have a way to break this formation? Dongfang Chang'ao saw the confident smile on his face and couldn't help but ask. This formation may be able to stop others, but it can't stop me. Elder Gong's son smiled a little proudly. Years ago, I accidentally came up with a useless formation. Because it wasn't very useful, I never really used it. I didn't think I'd be able to use it today. As soon as he said this, someone asked curiously, Formation? What formation can break this ancient formation? My formation can't trap people, nor can it stop people, nor can it hurt people. But once it's set up, it can drain all the spiritual energy in the formation and cut off the spiritual energy from the outside. If you set up my formation outside the North Pole Illusion Spirit Formation, what do you think will happen? After Elder Gong's son said this proudly, everyone immediately understood what he meant. Someone laughed. Amazing! This is too amazing. Gong's son, you're really something. You actually came up with such a formation. Dongfang Chang'ao couldn't help but smile. It seemed like it was a coincidence that he was dragged here today. So he raised his hand. Elder Gong's son, I'll leave this to you. Do you need any help? No need. Just watch the show. Elder Gong's son waved his hand at everyone. After looking around, he started to take things out from his storage bag. As his body flashed, he started to get busy in a radius of 10 meters with the mountain wall as the center. Yu Qianqiu, who was hiding not far away, heard everything inside. Supporting Xian Island definitely didn't get it by luck. They really had all kinds of talents. This was heaven's will. Fortunately, the supporting Immortal Island was involved. Otherwise, no one would be able to break this formation. Not long after, Elder Gong's son finished setting up the formation. After everyone retreated 10 meters away, he formed a hand seal and shot a white light into the formation. He shouted, Activate! There was a fluctuation in the formation, and there was a hissing sound. Spiritual energy condensed into a white mist in front of the mountain wall, slowly spreading in all directions. Everyone nodded. The formation that Elder Gong's son set up was obviously working. The vines and flowers in front of the mountain wall started to lose their original luster, and their colors gradually dimmed. Under Gongsuan's control, the formation spun faster and faster, and the speed at which spiritual energy was extracted also increased. A few hours later, the scene in the formation started to shake, and a faintly discernible cave in front of the mountain wall appeared before everyone's eyes. The group exchanged glances, thinking that there was indeed a mystery in there. Dongfang Chang'ao waved his hand solemnly, and everyone went on high alert. Chapter 244. After the spiritual energy in the array was sucked dry, a 3-meter-wide hole appeared before everyone's eyes. Immediately, 2 people dashed into the hole and observed it. Then, they nodded to everyone. The group of old fellows carefully went in, leaving the remaining people to guard the hole. Damn it! Yu Qianqiu cursed in his heart. If they all went in, he could sneak in behind them to see what kind of place it was. Who knew that not long after, the sounds of fighting could be heard coming from inside. Then Dongfang Chang'ao shouted, How dare you, evildoer! The expressions of the people outside the hole changed. They nodded at each other and dashed in. The sounds of fighting became more intense. Even Yu Qianqiu, who was hiding in the mountain opposite, could feel the ground shaking. Evildoer! Yu Qianqiu mumbled to himself. He pulled down the black mask on his head, revealing only his eyes. Just as he was about to sneak in to watch the show, he was suddenly attracted by a place. From his point of view, the scene at the corner of the valley suddenly fluctuated, and another cave entrance suddenly appeared on the mountain wall. 2 old men in white scuttled out and looked around. Then they nodded at the hole. Then, one of them dashed out and said something to the 2 old men before flying away. It's really you! Yu Qianqiu sneered to himself. The person who flew away was none other than 100 Flowers Palace's Xueqi. He was also heading in the direction of the 100 Flowers Valley. After the hole that appeared suddenly returned to its original state, the two old men in white flashed to the hole that the people from supporting Immortals Island had entered. They stood guard in front of the hole and took out a shiny silver chain from their storage bags, holding it horizontally in their hands. Upon closer inspection, one could see that the two ends of the chain seemed to be tied with two sharp claws. Yu Qianqiu secretly pondered about their origins. Judging from their clothes and weapons, he had not seen or heard of them in the cultivation world. Listening to the sounds of fierce fighting in the cave and the occasional blood-curdling screams, he didn't know which side had won. However, the people in the cave were not to be trifled with. Otherwise, they would not have been able to fight against the 50 crossing calamity stage experts from the supporting Immortal Island for such a long time. The people from Fuxian Island probably weren't feeling any better. From Dongfang Chang'ao's angry roars, it was obvious that he was like a wounded lion. Yu Qianqiu shook his head inwardly. This Fuxian Island must have been too arrogant in the cultivation world. They dared to barge into other people's lair without any backup. They didn't even consider that those fellows who could annihilate Ong Guangceng were not easy to deal with. They deserved to learn from their mistakes. The sounds of fighting became clearer and clearer as it approached the entrance of the cave. As soon as the elders of the supporting Immortal Island shot out, they were greeted by two sharp claws that swept across the sky. The silver dragon brandished its claws, the light and shadow were cold, stirring up the entire valley with echoes of hua hua. After a few violent sounds of metal clashing, the few people who were just about to rush out were forced back. It's over. Supporting Immortal Island had suffered a great loss this time. They closed the door to beat the dog and attacked from both sides. Yu Qianqiu clearly saw that the few people who had just shot out of the cave were already injured. Hi! A shout came from the cave, and suddenly, a dazzling golden light shot out from the cave entrance. Bang! With a loud sound, the cave entrance suddenly collapsed. Yu Qianqiu, who was hiding on the other side of the mountain, was speechless. Oh my! What is this? It actually caused half of the mountain to collapse? Immediately after, a golden light shot out from the collapsed area, causing the earth to collapse and rocks to fly. A figure dashed out from the collapsed area, and it was Dongfang Chang'ao. The two white-robed elders outside immediately pounced over, and the two silver dragon claws clawed out from the left and right. At this moment, Dongfang Chang'ao was not holding a sword in his hand, but a golden spear. With a shake of his hand, the golden spearhead suddenly enlarged by 1,000 times. The spearhead was the size of half a door, and it swept towards the incoming chain claws with a dazzling golden light. Ding-dang! The two silver dragons were cut into pieces by the sharp golden light. High-grade offensive magic treasure. The two of them exclaimed at the same time. However, this was only the first spear, and Dongfang Chang'ao's second spear swept over. Go! As one of them shouted, he quickly dodged. Without a weapon, how could he block the attack of a high-grade magic treasure with his bare hands? The other person's reaction seemed to be a little slower, and he was hit by the spear's golden light. Ah! Accompanied by a scream, the person was split into two and fell down. Dongfang Chang'ao brandished his spear like a god of death. He stood in the air and glanced at the hole he opened. As soon as more than 10 of his fellow sect members flew out, a silver chain claw flew out from the hole and grabbed towards the last person who flew out. Dongfang Chang'ao swung the golden spear in his hand, and blocked the flying claw for his fellow sect member. The chain claw wrapped around the spear's handle where the spear's head connected. He raised the spear, and the owner of the chain claw flew out from the hole together with the chain. Who? The golden light whistled and attacked. When that person saw the situation clearly, he was almost scared out of his wits. He immediately let go of the chain and wanted to escape, but he was still too late. The golden light flashed, and the broken chain claw sprinkled a rain of blood. Quickly return to the sect. You guys go first. I will cover you. Dongfang Chang'ao shouted with grief and indignation. Out of the 50 people that came out, only a dozen or so were left. How could he not feel sad? The remaining people from Fuxian Island did not say anything and immediately ran away. He was the only one left to guard the hole with his spear. Almost every spear attack did not miss, and he killed everyone that came out. The eyes of the white-robed elder who survived the spear turned red, but he did not dare to underestimate the sharpness of the high-grade magic treasure. Good treasure. Good treasure. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up, and he stared at the golden spear in Dongfang Chang'ao's hand. The people under the hole seemed to know that it was too difficult to charge out, so no one came out. Dongfang Chang'ao was still guarding there. Yu Qianqiu secretly felt something was wrong, and he looked at the hole that Yan Zhuixing came out from. Sure enough, the hole was already wide open. Swoosh swoosh. Dozens of people in white flew out, and immediately surrounded Dongfang Chang'ao. The latter was shocked. He did not expect there to be a back door in this cave. He was not a rigid person, so he moved, and with a few spear attacks, he broke through the encirclement and flew away quickly. A group of people chased after him. Seeing that Dongfang Chang'ao was flying in the direction of the Hundred Flowers Valley, Yu Qianqiu thought that if he could escape to the Hundred Flowers Valley, it would be a way to save his life. Yan Zhuixing always did things sneakily, and he reckoned that this group of people would not dare to break into the Hundred Flowers Valley. Moreover, there was the Cultivation Alliance there. The valley immediately became empty. Yu Qianqiu looked at the open hole, and he wanted to run in to see, but he did not know if there was anyone inside. Then, he thought that those people would definitely come back, regardless of whether they could chase Dongfang Chang'ao or not. So, he gave up the idea of taking the risk. He thought to himself, supporting Xian Island has lost more than 30 Tribulation stage elders this time, and I don't know what will happen next. I'd better continue to watch the show. I just need to help at the critical moment. Ah! Yu Qianqiu glanced at the corpses in the valley, and he suddenly froze on the spot. When he came to his senses, he rubbed his eyes, and hurriedly jumped to the place where the battle took place. He saw that the people in white killed by Dongfang Chang'ao were all gone, and there were animal corpses on the ground. To be exact, they should be the corpses of white foxes. This immediately made him think of something. Chapter 245. Little Snow's 4 treasures belonged to the Fox clan, and Yan Zhuixing had auctioned them off. There had to be a connection between the two. Were the corpses of the Snow Fox clan in the extreme north? Yu Qianqiu thought about it again and again, but he still pulled Bai Suzhen out to verify it. Seeing the corpses of her clansmen on the ground, Bai Suzhen's face flashed a trace of desolation. Yu Qianqiu understood from her expression and didn't ask any more. He casually flicked out a dozen fireballs and instantly turned the corpses of the Fox clan into ashes. After Yu Qianqiu roughly explained what had happened, Bai Suzhen didn't say anything else and hurriedly entered the cave. Yu Qianqiu had no choice but to follow her in. After going deeper, he realized that this was a spirit stone mine that had been abandoned for many years. It was a pity that he didn't see a single living person. In a large mine, the corpses of the supporting Immortal Island and the Fox clan were all over the ground. Bai Suzhen looked around and actually found a dying Fox clan member. Seeing Bai Suzhen supporting the elder and using her demonic essence to save him, Yu Qianqiu sighed and said, "We can't stay here for long. Let's go back first." When the 3 of them reappeared, they were already in the earliest bamboo house of Utopia. This was their earliest residence, and there was also House Sanxi's tomb in the backyard. Therefore, this place had become one of the forbidden areas of Utopia. After helping her carry the Fox clan elder to a bamboo bed, Yu Qianqiu couldn't bear to see her anxious look. He took out a rainbow-colored Rui pill and said, "Use this. I believe that as long as he's still breathing, he can be saved." Bai Suzhen was stunned. She knew how precious the Rui pill was. After hesitating for a moment, she still took it and turned around to help the dying elder consume it. After doing what needed to be done, she could only leave it to fate. If even the Rui pill that could bring the dead back to life couldn't save him, then there was nothing she could do. Seeing her staring at the old man on the bamboo bed in a daze, Yu Qianqiu walked to her side and comforted her. "Sister, don't worry. He'll be fine. Do you know him?" "He's my uncle," Bai Suzhen stuttered. Yu Qianqiu was completely speechless. Thus, the 2 of them didn't do anything and just quietly guarded the bamboo house. However, the effects of the Rui pill, refined from the Adumbra flower, were truly excellent. A demon that was on the verge of death slowly regained consciousness in less than a day. When he opened his eyes, he saw Bai Suzhen guarding the bedside with a concerned expression. He exclaimed in surprise, "Ling Er, aren't you dead?" Yu Qianqiu knew that Ling Er was Bai Suzhen's nickname in the past. "Uncle, it's me." Bai Suzhen smiled sweetly. "Where is this?" The man looked around. When he saw Bai Suzhen's attire, he exclaimed in surprise again. Little Snow's 4 treasures. Why are they on you? Bai Suzhen shook her head and didn't answer. Instead, she frowned and asked, Uncle, why aren't you staying in the clan? Why did you come to the Huaxia Empire? It's all because your mother forced us to. The man laughed bitterly and touched the wound on his abdomen that was about to heal. He said blankly, You saved me? Not me, he saved you. Bai Suzhen pointed at Yu Qianqiu and said. The man sized up Yu Qianqiu and struggled to get up to thank him. Yu Qianqiu hurriedly pressed him down and said with a smile, It's nothing. There's no need to be so polite. Just focus on recovering. He's your man? The man was puzzled. Bai Suzhen and Yu Qianqiu looked at each other. Bai Suzhen smiled non-committally, then frowned and said, Uncle, you said my mother forced you. What's going on? The man shook his head with a bitter smile and told them what had happened. It turned out that Bai Suzhen's mother, Xueqi, had been forced to step down from the position of clan leader for the sake of her daughter. She had never been reconciled to it, and just 100 years ago, she, who had been accumulating power, had taken back the position of clan leader from the hands of a man. She had then gone on a killing spree within the clan, forcing the male clan leader who had ascended to the position from her hands to lead his people and flee. In the end, they fled to the Huaxia Empire. His name was Xueqi. He was also one of the patriarch's subordinates. Naturally, he also fled to the Huaxia Empire. Yu Qianqiu looked at Bai Suzhen in shock after hearing about the female patriarch's ruthless methods. He thought to himself, Your mother is not as gentle as you say. But thinking about it, a mother might show a positive side to her daughter, but how many daughters would say bad things about their mother? Senior, how did you get together with Yan Zhuixing of the 100 Flowers Palace? Why did he auction the 4 treasures? Yu Qianqiu asked. When we came, Yan Zhuixing wasn't even born yet. If there's one, it's with his father, Yan Bugue. Xueqi smiled bitterly and began to tell them what happened after that. The male patriarch of the Fox tribe had originally brought 600 to 700 people with him to escape. But who knew that Bai Suzhen's mother was so cruel and merciless? She wanted to eliminate the root of the problem and sent people to chase after them. The number of people who had been running for their lives had decreased from 6 to 700 to 3 to 400. Only when they had escaped into the territory of another empire did the Fox clan, who had been chasing after them, receive an attack from the local cultivators, allowing the remaining people to survive. But they didn't dare to stay in that empire, so they secretly sneaked into the Huaxia Empire. After hiding in the Huaxia Empire, they wanted to go back and take revenge, but they weren't Xueqing's match. They wanted to expand their forces there, but the human cultivators were very against the Yao race. If they weren't careful, they might bring disaster upon themselves. Just when everyone was feeling disheartened, Yan Bugue, who had married Bai Hua Fairy, appeared. It turned out that Yan Bugue had accidentally obtained a demon-revealing mirror made by a divine craftsman. When he met them, he found out that they were actually a group of fox demons. Unlike the others, Yan Bugue didn't reject the Yao race. He even befriended them and helped them as much as he could. When Yan Bugue found out about their origins, as well as that they knew the long-lost primordial spirit stripping technique, he immediately came up with a perfect revenge plan for them. That was to control the human cultivators and gather enough power to return to the extreme north for revenge. Hearing Xueqing's explanation, Yu Qianqiu doubtfully asked, Is Yan Bugue really that kind? That's right. Back then, we were blinded by our hatred. By the time we realized it, it was already too late, Xueqing sighed. After realizing that he was using us, we immediately wanted to turn against him, but we didn't know that he had already poisoned us with the 10,000 demons bone-adhering poison. Once it was activated, we felt like we were better off dead than alive. From then on, we had to take the antidote once a month, if anyone dared to disobey his orders. The patriarch died from this poison. The scene of his death was too horrible to even look at. All his bones were melted away by the poison, leaving him lying on the ground like a pile of mud. We watched as he slowly died of exhaustion. The two of them looked at each other. They knew that the patriarch he was talking about was the male patriarch who had led them to this place. They didn't expect that he was already dead. Seeing that he still looked fearful, Bai Suzhen frowned and said, Uncle, you don't have to worry. I gave you the Rui pill refined from the Adumbra flower to heal your wounds. The poison in your body should be neutralized by now. The Adumbra flower? Xueqi Kong cried out in surprise. She immediately circulated her energy to check her body. Sure enough, the poison in her bones was gone. She smiled in pleasant surprise. Bai Suzhen turned to Yu Qianchou and asked, "The pill recipe Jade Archive seems to contain the antidote that can completely neutralize the bone-adhering poison, right?" "That's right. However, we're still missing a spiritual herb as the main ingredient. However, the Jade Archive says that it should grow in the demon domain." Yu Qianchou knew that she wanted to help her clansmen neutralize the bone-adhering poison. However, the Adumbra flower was too precious. It would be a waste to use it just to neutralize the poison. Not to mention, not all of those people were her uncle. He rubbed his nose and smiled. "Sister, don't worry. Leave the matter of neutralizing the poison in your clansmen to me. I'll make a trip to the demon domain someday and ask the Ghost General to help me look for it." Bai Suzhen nodded. Words of gratitude were no longer necessary between the two of them. However, Yu Qianchou suddenly thought of something frightening. He couldn't help but frown. "Senior Xue, you mean to say that 100 years ago, you started using the great art of extracting primordial spirit on Yan Bugue? Doesn't that mean that he has been secretly accumulating his strength for 100 years? Chapter 246. Xueqi Kong was still immersed in the excitement of getting rid of the poison and didn't hear what he said. Bai Suzhen pulled him and repeated Yu Qianchou's words. Xueqi Kong nodded gratefully and said, "It's been 150 years, and I've recruited a lot of people. I'm afraid there are more than 10,000 of them now. The weakest is at the nascent soul stage, and there are more than 200 who are at the tribulation stage. Yan Bugue's strength shouldn't be weak." "What do you mean by shouldn't be weak?" Yu Qianchou exclaimed and couldn't help but roll his eyes at him. "Yan Bugue's strength is almost on par with Fuxian Island, and you call that not weak? If I have such strength, I can do whatever I want in the cultivation world. Why does he have so many tribulation stage cultivators?" Yu Qianchou asked, "How many of them are at the final stage of the tribulation stage?" "We secretly helped him catch them, and after we caught them, we removed the control of their Yuan Shen. Most of them are rogue cultivators. Some of them were at the final stage of the nascent soul stage when they were caught, but after so many years of cultivation, they have also reached the tribulation stage. There are 4 of them at the final stage of the tribulation stage," Xueqi Kong explained. "Are you included in the 200 tribulation stage cultivators?" "Yes, we are more than half of them, and the 4 of them are also our people." Hearing this, Yu Qianchou's eyes lit up and he quickly calculated in his mind. If this group of Fox clan members who were controlled by Yan Bugue's poison were suddenly detoxified, how would they react? It seemed that he had to go to the realm of monsters as soon as possible. Although he had a plan, he still had some questions in his mind, so he frowned and asked, "Where are Yan Bugue's people? Why did Yan Zhuixing sell the 5 treasures made by the divine craftsman?" Xueqi Kong felt relaxed after getting rid of the poison that had possessed him for 100 years. He was very grateful to Yu Qianchou, so he answered immediately, "Except for those who are used frequently, the rest are hidden on an island in the sea. As for why they are selling 5 treasures, I don't know. But judging from a few things, he was afraid that he didn't have enough spirit stones. Originally, we would capture anyone who had stepped into the core formation stage, but we stopped doing so 50 years ago. Normally, we wouldn't touch anyone below the nascent soul stage, but now, we won't capture anyone below the late nascent soul stage." Once, I heard Yan Zhuixing sigh. He said that the cost of 10,000 people wasn't a small number. Not long after that, he sold the 5 treasures made by the divine craftsman. And this time, they mobilized more than 400 people from overseas to attack Ong Kwangtsung. Among them, they used 100 cultivators who were in the tribulation transcending stage, mainly to rush for spirit stones. They robbed Ong Kwangtsung of more than 100 million high-grade spirit stones. Bastard! Yu Qianchou cursed under his breath. He thought, "I worked so hard to loot 21 spirit stone mines, but I only got 10 million high-grade spirit stones." In the end, Ong Kwangtsung's strength was split, and the 100-flower palace benefited from it. "Damn it!" Yu Qianchou frowned. "If I ask you to take me to the island, can you find the way?" "Yes," Xueqi Kong said without hesitation. Bai Suzhen frowned, but she didn't say anything. He is so powerful, but he still has to endure. It seems that Yen Bugue's ambition is to conquer the entire cultivation world. Good. Rest well, I won't disturb you anymore. Yu Qianqiu nodded with satisfaction, then said to Bai Suzhen, Sister, I have something to do. You two take your time. With that he disappeared. Xueqi was taken aback and exclaimed, Ling Er. He is also at the last phase of the tribulation passing stage? Bai Suzhen's frown didn't loosen. Instead she asked, Uncle, if I wanted your natal primordial spirit, would you agree? What do you mean? Xueqi was shocked. Bai Suzhen's figure flickered like a phantom, and her fingers formed into a claw as she grabbed onto his head. A white light wrapped around his head, and when she retracted her hand, a small person that looked like Xueqi, who was only a few inches tall, was caught. Bai Suzhen put the natal Yuan Shen into a spirit stone and put it in her storage pouch. She looked at Xueqi, who was crying on the bed inside. Uncle, don't blame me. Since he said that, he must have planned to go overseas. I can stop him, but I won't. Uncle, do you know? His place in my heart is no lighter than my mother's. He is the most important person in my life. I will not allow anyone to bring danger to him. Don't worry, Uncle. When I think he is safe, I will return your natal Yuan Shen to you. Although her words were sincere, Xueqi was currently suffering from soul-deep pain. Coupled with the injuries on her body, how could she hear what she was saying? Yu Qianqiu didn't go anywhere else, but went to the ethereal palace to find Chu Ping. When the attack on Ong Guangceng was mentioned, he remembered that he promised Chu Ping to bring her master here. Now that Ong Guangceng was gone, who knew if her master was still alive or not? As the saying goes, it's better to get the pain over with as soon as possible. At most it would be over with time. At that time, little Wu Chou was playing with Chu Ping, and the little guy seemed to like this beautiful sister-in-law very much. When Yu Qianqiu drove him out, he was quite reluctant. This caused Chu Ping's face to turn red. Who asked Yu Qianqiu to rarely see people? Even if he did, he would pester her to do that kind of thing the moment he came. She could not help but misunderstand Yu Qianqiu's current actions. When Yu Qianqiu told her the bad news that Ong Guangceng was killed, Chu Ping was stunned as if she was struck by lightning. Yu Qianqiu didn't comfort her, but turned around and left. Now was the time for her to vent her anger, and no one could persuade her. After walking out of the ethereal palace with a heavy heart, he stood at the top of the mountain and saw a couple holding hands on the mountainside. It was his parents who were climbing the mountain. A gratified smile appeared on his face. It was his long-cherished wish to let his wife and family live a happy life. Looking into the distance, he could see a circle of purple in the sky, but after he broke through to the middle stage of the core formation realm, he couldn't see it anymore. Yu Qianqiu let out a breath and murmured, Pinger, Ong Guangceng's death might be hard for you to accept, but it's not necessarily a bad thing for me. Maybe I'm too selfish, but I really don't want you to live in the shadows of Ong Guangceng and your master for the rest of your life. You're my woman, not anyone's disciple. When Yu Chonggue and his wife reached the top of the mountain, Yu Qianqiu told them about Master Chu Ping's misfortune. He begged his parents to comfort her after she calmed down, and he told Bai Suzhen through his divine sense. After making arrangements for Chu Ping, he went to the border of Utopia and took out the green destiny sword. It was also a high-grade offensive magic treasure. The image of Dongfeng Chang'ao being invincible with the spear in his hand was still vivid in his mind. Outside the Hundred Flowers Valley, Yu Qianqiu walked in openly with the Hundred Flowers Valley's access token. As he expected, although his arrival caused quite a commotion in the Hundred Flowers Valley, it was nothing much. Ong Guangceng had been killed, and no one was offering a bounty for his capture anymore. He believed that those itinerant cultivators wouldn't find trouble with him for no reason. The supporting Immortal Island hadn't even solved their own problems, so they wouldn't care about him. The righteous and demonic sects were in a cold war, and no one would act rashly. As for the ones who dared to touch him, it was probably the Daluo sect. However, they still had to give the Hundred Flowers Valley some face, so they wouldn't touch him here. So what if they did touch him? Since he dared to appear openly, he wasn't afraid of the Daluo sect. What he was afraid of was that the Daluo sect wouldn't find trouble with him. From today onwards, he didn't need to be sneaky anymore. Otherwise, once the troubles of the various sects were solved, he would have to hide for the rest of his life. This was the time to make a name for himself. Only by making those who wanted to deal with him fear him could he live openly in the future. Walking on the streets of the 100 Flowers Valley, Yu Qianqiu let out a depressed breath. The Daluo sect hopes that you can come quickly. I, Yu Qianqiu, need to ignite my anger. I need to ignite your Daluo sect to achieve my glory. Chapter 247. He wore a fitting black robe, carried a long sword on his back, and had a storage bag on his waist. This was the standard attire of a cultivator. It was the first time that he had appeared in a public place outside of supporting Immortals Island. He was walking on the streets of the 100 Flowers Valley. Yu Qianqiu is here. Someone recognized him, and the news spread quickly. Many people came to see what was going on. On both sides of the street, countless people looked at this guy who looked like he was taking a leisurely stroll. Everyone was amazed. They said that he was extremely daring, offended the Daluo sect, and dared to show his face without the protection of supporting Immortals Island. Yu Qianqiu glanced at both sides of the street, and there were many familiar faces. There were also many people in the Cultivation Alliance who were familiar with him, but they didn't know whether to greet him or not. Especially the people from supporting Immortals Island, who were disciples of the same sect as him. Everyone had the opportunity to stay in the Cultivation Pavilion after going through many hardships and competitions. Why were they acting like strangers when they met again? Xueqi had some friendship with Yu Qianqiu, but he didn't know whether to greet him or not under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Yu Qianqiu glanced at him and smiled at him. Xueqi smiled bitterly and shook his head. Dongua Su, who was setting up a stall, was shocked when he heard that Yu Qianqiu was here. He threw his stall aside and hurried over. He saw Yu Qianqiu, and Yu Qianqiu also saw him. However, Yu Qianqiu looked away as if he didn't know him. The people from the 4 major families were also shocked when they heard that Yu Qianqiu was here. The 4 major families were looking for him everywhere. After confirming that it was him, the communication formations in the 4 shops were activated, and the news of Yu Qianqiu's appearance was sent back. Waha! Brother Yu, you finally showed up. Xueqi laughed as he walked over from the other end of the street. As he walked, he pointed at a group of people behind him and said, "Old brother, I'm here to welcome you with my fellows from the Devil Dao." The group of people behind him also laughed happily. As soon as he said that, the expressions of the Righteous Path's people changed, especially the people from supporting Immortal Island. If the outstanding disciple of the #1 sect of the Righteous Path joined the Devil Path, then supporting Immortal Island would really be criticized behind their backs. After meeting up with Xueqi and the rest, Yu Qianqiu cupped his fists and smiled. "You flatter me, you flatter me." The people of the demonic path were like stars surrounding the moon. They surrounded him in the center, talking to him one after another. He naturally responded, as if they were old friends meeting. "Brother Yu!" Someone shouted from afar. Everyone looked over and saw a few people following behind Yan Zhuixing, walking over quickly. Yu Qianqiu walked out of the crowd and cupped his fists from afar. "Brother Yan, long time no see." The two of them walked over and hugged each other passionately, as if their relationship was very close. The performance here was not over yet. For people came out from the side of the street and bowed to Yu Qianqiu together, by clan, Jing clan, Tan clan, and Wu clan, under the orders of the clan heads, respectfully invite Mr. Yu to visit the 4 major clans. Saying that, the 4 of them took out their invitations. Yu Qianqiu understood the meaning of the 4 major clans. They knew that he was here and were afraid that something bad would happen to him. So, they purposely came to suppress him in front of everyone. He smiled and received the invitations. He cupped his fists and said, "Send my regards to the 4 clan heads. I will definitely visit them in the future." The 4 of them acknowledged and left. The people in the surroundings couldn't stop clicking their tongues. This Yu Qianqiu might have been expelled from supporting Immortal Island, but he was still doing very well. The supporting Immortal Island's disciples in the crowd had an indescribable feeling. Some of them had already left quietly to report what happened here to Quan Deming. Xueqi twirled his beard and smiled. This brat's connections were quite wide. He even managed to hook up with the clan heads of the 4 major clans. If he could pull this brat into the 10,000 demons, it would only be beneficial for the 10,000 demons. Not only him, but the various demonic sects and Yan Zhuixing also had the same thought. "Hee hee. Brother Yu, You didn't give me face when I invited you for a drink last time. This time, don't reject me again. Qiu Wuyuan chuckled. He was referring to the time when Yu Qianqiu hadn't been expelled from supporting Immortal Island. At that time, he was concerned about the feud between the righteous and demonic sects, so he didn't force Yu Qianqiu. Naturally, he didn't have to worry about that this time. I'll do as you say. Yu Qianqiu cupped his fists and said. The people in the surroundings were pondering. They reckoned that it was only a matter of time before Yu Qianqiu joined the demonic sections. Senior Qiu, that's not right. Yan Xueqi suddenly interrupted. How can we let Senior Qiu treat us in our Hundred Flowers Palace's territory? Today, I'll be the host at Hundred Flowers Palace to welcome Brother Yu. Why don't you all come and drink with us? Once he said that, the demonic sects cheered. Qiu Wuyuan smiled and didn't say anything. If it was someone else, he would probably retort. However, Yan Xueqi was different. He was the son of his senior brother Yan Bugui. Yu Qianqiu looked at Yan Xueqi with a smile. However, he was muttering in his heart, "Damn it! You're so poor that you have to rob others. Why are you still pretending to be generous?" Just as the bustling crowd was rushing towards Hundred Flowers Palace, another group of people walked over. When Yu Qianqiu saw them, he was instantly amused. It was another old acquaintance. However, this old acquaintance wouldn't treat him to a drink. It was Luo Xiaohan, who he had fought at Limu House on Hat Island. At this moment, he was leading a group of Daluo sect disciples over with a sinister smile. Everyone knew why Luo Xiaohan was here. The demonic sects always worshipped the strong. Everyone had the mentality of watching a show. They wanted to see how Yu Qianqiu would deal with it. They wanted to see if he lived up to his reputation. Yu Qianqiu suddenly sighed to Yan Xueqi, who was beside him. Brother Yan, it would be great if all the spoiled brats in the cultivation world were as smart as you. However, they are all reckless. Yan Xueqi looked at him blankly. He didn't know if Luo Xiaohan was complimenting him or if he already knew something. When enemies met, confrontation was inevitable. Luo Xiaohan smiled sinisterly. Yu Qianqiu, you haven't forgotten about me, right? Hee. I thought you were going to hide for the rest of your life and that I wouldn't have the chance to see you again. I didn't expect you to be so daring. You still dare to show yourself without the support of supporting Immortal Island. You're really courting death. His tone was sinister and filled with killing intent. The humiliation that Yu Qianqiu had brought him could only be washed away with his blood. Otherwise, he would be a laughingstock for the rest of his life. I also didn't expect you to have the guts to show yourself. The saying, enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road, is right. It's fate that I can run into you under such circumstances. Yu Qianqiu joked. He immediately shouted, Bastard, hurry up and make way for me. If you continue to be so long-winded, do you believe that I will still dare to beat you up even without the support of supporting Immortal Island? The demonic sects cooperated and burst into laughter. Some of the onlookers couldn't help but laugh too. Luo Xiaohan's body trembled. His expression twitched and he couldn't speak. He had the urge to attack. The people beside him quickly pulled him back. Yan Xueqi frowned. Brother Luo, this is my 100 Flowers Valley. It's not a place for you to settle your personal grudges. I hope you can abide by the rules here. Chapter 248. Hee. Yen, do you think your 100 Flowers Valley's rules can interfere with my Daluo sect? Luo Xiaohan was so angry that his eyes were red. Qiu Wuyuan's face darkened when he heard the words Yen. Yan Xueqing's eyes flashed coldly as he said in a low voice, What do you want then? Young Palace Master, don't stoop to his level. A clear voice was heard. Everyone looked over and saw that it was Daluo sect's principal elder in the Cultivation Alliance, Zhu Xianxian. Yan Xueqing cupped his hands and greeted, Elder Zhu. Luo Xiaohan held his breath and greeted, Martial Uncle Zhu. When Zhu Xianxian and Qiu Wuyuan met, they both snorted and turned their heads away, too lazy to look at each other. This was the customary greeting between the righteous and demonic sections. Zhu Xianxian glanced at Yu Qianqiu before turning back to Luo Xiaohan, frowning. The 100 Flowers Palace is the owner of this place. Why are you causing trouble here? Don't you know the basic rules? Can't you talk after you leave the 100 Flowers Valley? Everyone understood what he meant. Yu Qianqiu couldn't hide in the 100 Flowers Valley for the rest of his life. If he wanted revenge, he could do whatever he wanted once he left the 100 Flowers Valley. Luo Xiaohan's anger subsided. He cupped his hands and said, "Martial uncle, you're right." He turned to Yu Qianqiu and snorted, "What's the point of arguing? Leave the 100 Flowers Valley now if you're so capable." I forgot that Yu Qianqiu, are used to being a coward. I think you first hid in Kuangcang. Then you went to Fuxian Island. Are you going to hide in the 100 Flowers Valley again? Or are you going to join some demonic sect? Yu Qianqiu sneered. Trying to provoke me to leave the 100 Flowers Valley for revenge? Aren't you afraid of getting beaten up? Are you getting bolder because you have the support of your seniors? Chi! Do you really think that sneak attacks are a skill? Luo Xiaohan sneered. Do I need to use my seniors to deal with you? Come out and try if you have the guts. He did not believe that he, a nascent soul stage cultivator, could not defeat a core formation stage cultivator. He had always believed that the reason why he was beaten up on Hat Island was because the opponent had successfully ambushed him. Those from the Grand Immortal sect shared the same sentiments. Everyone was very quiet. They didn't know if Yu Qianqiu would be provoked out of the 100 Flowers Valley. What he didn't know was that Yu Qianqiu was worried about Zhu Xianxian and the other masters in the Crossing Calamity stage. Yu Qianqiu had been waiting for him to say this. Yu Qianqiu smiled faintly and said, "It's not that I don't want to go out, but I'm afraid that I'll kill you when I go out. If the Daluo sect keeps pestering me, I'll be annoyed to death." Kill me? What a joke. Luo Xiaohan said disdainfully, "If you're afraid, just say it. There's no need to find some high-sounding excuse. This is a personal grudge between us. If you really have the ability to kill me, I can guarantee that the Daluo sect will not trouble you in the future. Today, I'll say this. If you have the guts, follow me out of the 100 Flowers Valley." Yu Qianqiu looked around and said, "Everyone here heard it. This Luo Xiaohan is not going to let me go. If I don't accept his challenge, he will think that I, Yu Qianqiu, am afraid of him. Since that's the case, please be my witnesses. Today, I will fight him outside the 100 Flowers Valley." Good. Zhou Wuyuan clapped his hands and shouted, "Today is a personal grudge between the two of you. If anyone else dares to interfere, I, Zhou Wuyuan, will be the first to deal with him." He had never seen Yu Qianqiu's capabilities. Today was a rare opportunity. Moreover, Luo Xiaohan himself had said so. It would be a waste not to do him a favor. Yes, if anyone dares to interfere, we won't let him go. The demonic cultivators joined in. They wanted to see what the famous Yu Qianqiu was capable of. Yan Zhuixing's eyes were filled with suspicion. Why did Yu Qianqiu look like he had dug a pit for Luo Xiaohan to jump into? Zhu Xianxian also frowned. If that's the case, then let's go. I've been longing for this day for a long time. Luo Xiaohan smiled ferociously. What's the rush? You don't have to rush to reincarnate. I have some words of advice for you. Yu Qianqiu stared at him and shook his head. He said with infinite melancholy, I, Yu Qianqiu, have never tasted defeat since my debut. Sigh. Using my all-seeing mystic art to fight you is really making a mountain out of a molehill. How about this? I don't want to take advantage of you, so I'll leave you with these words. Since you said that you don't need the help of the elders, then I'll allow the seniors and juniors of the same generation to help you. I don't have any objections. When the crowd heard him say things like, never tasted defeat, and all-seeing mystic art, they immediately booed. They all thought to themselves, so this Yu Qianqiu is a braggart. When they heard the latter part of his words, they immediately felt that this guy was crazy. It was already good enough for a core formation cultivator to defeat a nascent soul cultivator, but he actually wanted them to find helpers. Wasn't this courting death? Zhou Wuyuan and Yan Zhuixing looked at each other. This guy must have a screw loose. It took them so much effort to nail down his words and prevent the others from Daluo sect from interfering, but now it was ruined by his own words. Zhu Xianxian was also stunned. He thought he had heard wrong. What they didn't know was that Yu Qianqiu, who was in the middle of the situation, was thinking even more. He didn't care about the outcome of this battle. He knew that regardless of whether he won or lost, Daluo sect would let him off in the open, but they wouldn't let him off in the dark. After all, He didn't have a backer like supporting a mortal island anymore. Since that was the case, he would rely on his own strength. Those who were kind would be bullied by others. Usually, the more famous a person was, the less people would dare to provoke them, and the less people would dare to bully them. How can a Luo Xiaohan ignite my infamy? Yu Qianzhou ignored the various expressions of the crowd and glanced at the Daluo sect disciples. Arrogant! Luo Xiaohan sneered. Cut the crap. Come out if you have the guts. With that, he took the lead and walked out of the city gate of the 100 Flowers Valley. Yu Qianzhou smiled faintly and followed. Beth! The entire 100 Flowers Valley was in an uproar. Yu Qianzhou was really going to fight to the death with the son of the Daluo sect's sect master. In an instant, the crowd surged forward and rushed to the city gate, looking for a good spot to watch the battle. Before long, all the streets of the 100 Flowers Valley became empty. Many of the stalls in the market had been taken away, and those that were confiscated had left their stalls. No one was in the mood to do business now. When almost all the people had left the 100 Flowers Valley, Yan Xueqi and the people from the Devil sect followed the leisurely Yu Qianzhou to the city gate. After exiting the 100 Flowers Valley, they saw so many people in the originally secluded forest. It was a little abrupt. Luo Xiaohan was waiting in a relatively flat area. The crowd was centered around him. The forest was full of grass and trees, so it was not practical to walk there. The sword on Yu Qianzhou's back popped out and carried him. After landing in front of Luo Xiaohan, he sheathed his sword and looked around. The shopkeepers of the 4 major families were also here. Dongua Su and his wife also came with a child. Even Fuxian Island's Quan Deming came with a group of people. Just at this moment, Yan Zixia also arrived with an elder with an extraordinary bearing. Yan Zixia still acted as though she did not know him. She did not know who that elder was, but when he landed beside Yan Xueqi and Qiu Weiyuan, both of them were extremely respectful towards him. Could it be that this person was Yan Bugui? With a clang, Luo Xiaohan rose into the sky with his mid-nascent soul cultivation. He stared down below and sneered, his expression full of contempt. Yu Qianzhou's gaze was fixed on Hong Qi, who was beside Dongua Su. He then raised his head and looked at the sneering guy in the sky. The sword was unsheathed and carried him to the same height. Luo Xiaohan was amused when he saw him riding on the sword empty-handed. He thought, "You're courting death. How dare you come up empty-handed?" Only the people from Fuxian Island knew that it wasn't the case. Yu Qianzhou could not control a flying sword. As expected, when a pile of flying swords flew out of Yu Qianzhou's storage pouch and filled the sky with an imposing aura, they formed an umbrella behind him. Luo Xiaohan's expression froze, and he couldn't smile anymore. Most of the people around were shocked. It was the first time they saw someone controlling so many flying swords at the same time. No wonder he was so arrogant. They didn't know how powerful they were. Zhu Xianxian frowned and began to secretly transmit his voice to the Daluo sect disciples beside him. Yu Qianzhou said with an expressionless face, "Shall we start now?" It was the first time Luo Xiaohan saw someone who could control so many flying swords. To be honest, he was shocked. After calming himself down, he sneered, "It's just a facade." As he spoke, the flying sword in his hand suddenly shot toward his opponent. Whether it's a facade or not, you'll know once you try. Yu Qianzhou didn't mind his sudden attack at all. He quietly stood on his sword and flicked his finger. 10 flying swords flashed out of the sword umbrella behind him and quickly went to meet the flying swords that were shooting at him. Chapter 249. Clang Clang. With a flash of cold light, the 10 flying swords Yu Qianzhou had released immediately entangled the opponent's flying sword in the air, producing a series of ear-piercing sounds. However, the difference in cultivation between the two was too great. Luo Xiaohan formed a seal with his fingers, and the flying sword spun in the air, bouncing off the entangled flying sword. With a whoosh, it once again shot toward the opponent. Go combine! With a flick of his fingers, another 10 flying swords flew out from the sword umbrella on Yu Qianzhou's back. He brought his palms together again, and the 10 flying swords merged into one, fiercely colliding with the oncoming sword. Clang! The oncoming sword's momentum was halted. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Yu Qianzhou once again joined his palms together and shouted, "Combine!" The 10 flying swords that had been bounced off earlier merged back into one, quickly striking the middle section of the opponent's flying sword. Bang! However, the opponent's sword only sank a little, not flying off. "You're overestimating yourself," Luo Xiaohan sneered. His fingers formed a seal, and the flying sword bounced into the air, whistling through the air as it slashed at one of the combined swords. Bang! Yu Qianzhou's mind shook, and the combined sword was immediately scattered. Before he could even stabilize his mind, the opponent's flying sword struck another combined sword. With a loud bang, Yu Qianzhou's body swayed, and he almost fell off his sword. Who was stronger and who was weaker could be seen in just a few moves. Some from the Da Luo sect began to cheer, while many from the demonic path shook their heads and sighed. Next to Donghua Su and his wife, Hong Qi clenched his small fists. Despite his young age, he knew that his master had suffered a loss. This won't do. The difference in cultivation between the two sides is too great. Yu Qianzhou was secretly startled, but he forced himself to calm down and called back the 20 scattered flying swords. He spread his arms and waved them, shouting, "Go!" More than 90 flying swords whistled through the air in a cone shape. Luo Xiaohan snorted coldly as he quickly summoned his sword back into his hand. His eyes were fixed on the flying swords that were flying towards him as he shouted, "Daluo sky-shattering style!" Gripping the hilt of the flying sword with both hands, he immediately transformed it into an illusory giant sword. Raising it high in the air, he fiercely slashed it down. With a loud bang, the cone formed by the 98 flying swords was immediately scattered, one after another falling from the sky to the ground. Yu Qianzhou staggered on the flying sword. He pressed his hand against his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood. The 98 flying swords, which were connected to his mind, sent back a powerful tremor at the same time, injuring him on the spot. Luo Xiaohan looked at the 90-odd flying swords on the ground and exclaimed softly, "They're all superior-grade flying swords." According to his own estimation, with such a huge difference in their cultivation bases, his attack should have shattered at least a dozen of his opponent's flying swords, even if not all of them had been shattered. Who knew that none of them had been shattered? So they were all superior-grade flying swords. Once bitten, twice shy. Yu Qianzhou finally understood that with his cultivation base, it was impossible for him to fight his opponent head-on. With a pinch of his fingers, the flying swords on the ground immediately flew back to him and circled around him a few times. His 10 fingers pinched together like a lotus, and the 98 flying swords scattered in different trajectories and quickly swarmed towards him. "You really won't shed a tear until you see your own coffin." Luo Xiaohan snorted coldly as he let go of the flying sword in his hand and let it hover in the air in front of his chest. He quickly made a complicated pinch of his fingers and pointed at the tail of the sword. He hurriedly shouted, "Daluo sky-shattering style." The body of the sword trembled and rotated rapidly, transforming into countless sword shadows. He pushed them out with one palm. The number of sword shadows increased, and in the blink of an eye, they formed a sword shield in front of him. It immediately entangled all of the flying swords that Yu Qianzhou had released. After a series of ear-piercing crisp sounds, Yu Qianzhou was forced to give up controlling the 98 flying swords. If he continued to resist, he would definitely be injured again. Seeing that Yu Qianzhou had given up resisting, Luo Xiaohan laughed heartily. With another pinch of his fingers, the spinning range of the sword shadows shrank. He bounced Yu Qianzhou's flying swords back one by one and kept them into his storage bag. The onlookers felt that it was a pity. Even Qiu Wuyuan and the others who supported Yu Qianzhou from the devil path could not help but sigh. At this moment, Yan Zixia finally revealed a trace of worry in her eyes as she witnessed the situation. The people from supporting Immortal Island, on the other hand, had indescribable expressions on their faces. Although Yu Qianzhou had been expelled from supporting Immortal Island, he was still an outstanding disciple of supporting Immortal Island. His loss had brought shame to supporting Immortal Island. The 4 shopkeepers of the shops from the 4 major clans had received orders before they came. If Yu Qianzhou was defeated and in danger, they were to rescue him at all costs. At this moment, the 4 of them were already ready to make a move. Yan Zhuixing sized up the 2 people who were fighting and felt that something was wrong. It seemed like it shouldn't have ended like this. Because Yu Qianzhou was too calm, it seemed like he did not care about this defeat at all. Did he think that Luo Xiaohan would let him go just like that? Luo Xiaohan stared at the flying sword under Yu Qianzhou's feet. He was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he teased, "Yu Qianqiu, thank you for the high-grade magic tool you gave me. If you still have it, I might let you go if I'm happy." A burst of laughter came from the Daluo sect's side. Yu Qianqiu stood on the flying sword with his hands behind his back. He squinted his eyes and stared at Luo Xiaohon. He said arrogantly, "You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I, Yu Qianqiu, have never been defeated since my debut. How can I be defeated by a bastard like you? That was just a warm-up. Now, I'll show you how powerful my Xueqi is. I hope you won't regret it." Today, he was not as low-key as he usually was. Instead, he talked a lot of big words. Only he knew why. Hearing this, Luo Xiaohon laughed again. He said, "All right, bring it on. I want to see how powerful your Xueqi is." He stopped abruptly before he could finish his sentence. He was dumbfounded. A demonic red light lit up in the sky, and a sea of fire suddenly appeared in the sky. In the middle of it, there was a person looking at him indifferently, as if he was looking at an ant. Who else could it be other than Yu Qianqiu? What was going on? The spectators were shocked. Even those who were standing far away could feel the scorching heat. The flowers and trees around the sea of fire were already emitting wisps of green smoke. The sea of fire had already started burning and was slowly spreading to the surroundings. The shock brought to everyone was indescribable. Xueqi swallowed hard and murmured, "What kind of spell is this? Why haven't I heard of it before? Could this be the Xueqi that Yu Qianqiu mentioned? Senior brother, have you heard of it?" The person he asked was precisely the Flower Palace's Yan Bu Gue. The latter recovered from his shock and exhaled before he said, "Amazing, I'm able to feel such a high temperature while standing here. How could Yu Qianqiu who's within the flames endure it?" Yan Zhuixing nodded to himself. That's right. He really had something to rely on. No wonder he was so arrogant. Among the crowd, little Hongqi's eyes shone brightly, and his two little hands couldn't help but grab onto his maternal grandparents' clothes. Dongua Su and his wife looked at each other, and they couldn't conceal the shock in their eyes. In fact, it was not only the two of them. The others were the same. After De Luo Sec's Zhu Xianxian regained his senses, he winked at the disciples around him, warning them to get ready. Seeing that the disciples were a little timid and did not move for a long time, he could not help but feel annoyed. He took a step forward and wanted to take action himself. Unexpectedly, he heard Qiu Wuyuan's laughter. "Zhu Xianxian, let's set the rules before the duel. If any of Luo Xiaohan's masters make a move, don't blame me, Qiu Wuyuan, for being impolite." Under the crowd's gaze, Qiu Wuyuan laughed heartily. He was going to do Luo Xiaohan a favor today. Yu Qianqiu glanced over and quickly retracted the flames around him, compressing them to an arm's length away from him. He stared at the dumbfounded Luo Xiaohan and said coldly, "Didn't you want to see how powerful my Xueqi is? Why aren't you making a move?" Chapter 250. On the other side, Yu Qianqiu was clad in flames, standing in the air like a god of fire. Luo Xiaohan's heart palpitated. He was now in a dilemma. If he fled now, he would lose all face for the De Luo sect. He was the legitimate son of the sect master. Others could flee, but he could not. However, he was too timid to do so. People were always afraid of the unknown. "If you're not going to make a move, then I will," Yu Qianqiu said again. Luo Xiaohan turned to look at Zhu Xianxian, pleading for help. Then he gritted his teeth and said, "It's just a smoke screen. Don't use it to scare people." As he spoke, the sword in his hand shot out, looking like he was taking the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. Yu Qianqiu was expressionless. He raised his hand and pointed two fingers. A thin red line of fire shot out to meet the flying sword. Now that he had his own understanding of fire control, he realized that the more compressed a flame was, the more powerful it would be. Poof! The red line of fire collided with the flying sword. There was no loud sound as it was split apart by the sword's edge. However, with a buzz, the broken line of fire turned into a ball of fire that immediately engulfed the flying sword and burned it. The flying sword advanced a few meters when it collided with the line of fire. Then, the enchanting flames melted the sword into a ball of liquid and fell to the ground. Luo Xiaohan's face paled. The spectators around him gasped. What a powerful flame! It almost melted the flying sword in an instant. Humph! Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. After withdrawing the line of fire, he suddenly rode his sword towards Luo Xiaohan. He did not want to waste any more time with his opponent. In the eyes of the spectators, it was as if a ball of fire was rushing towards Luo Xiaohan. Without a sword in hand, Luo Xiaohan immediately fumbled for the flying sword he had just obtained. He suddenly realized that there was still a strand of Yu Qianqiu's divine sense in the sword. If he wanted to control it, he would have to spend some time to erase it. However, he did not have the time to do so in his current situation. His instinctive reaction was to turn tail and run. But with his nascent soul cultivation, how fast could he go without flying on his sword? When he turned around to take a look, the burning man, Yu Qianqiu, was already closing in on him. He was scared out of his wits. As he desperately flew forward, he shouted, "Uncle Master, save me!" His intestines were about to turn green with regret, but he couldn't regret what he had done. It should be known that most of the cultivators in the cultivation world relied on flying swords and other magic artifacts and magic treasures to fight. Without these things, not many people could do anything in a fight. After all, it was not realistic to fight a flying sword with bare hands. Since Zhu Xianxian was being watched by Qiu Wuyuan, it was not convenient for him to make a move. He glared at the 6 disciples beside him and harumphed angrily, which was more or less a threat. The 6 of them were also original infant stage disciples. They were supposed to accompany Luo Xiaohan out to play. Although they said they were out to play, they were actually here to protect him. At this moment, they did not dare to hesitate any longer. The consequences were not something they could bear. After exchanging glances, the 6 of them quickly flew away on their swords. Yu Qianqiu glanced at the 6 of them and smiled ferociously. Instantly, his killing intent surged. He had purposely chased after Luo Xiaohan, waiting for the others to make a move. Now was the time to kill, and also the beginning of his fight with the Luo sect to the death. The speed of the flying sword suddenly increased by a few notches. His 5 fingers formed a claw that was covered with a thin layer of dazzling red flames. It directly pierced through Luo Xiaohan's back like a knife cutting through tofu. There was not the slightest bit of strain in his movements. How could the flaming claws, which had been suppressed to the extreme by Yu Qianqiu, be blocked by a mere human body? Naturally, it was effortless. Luo Xiaohan did not even have the chance to scream. He felt his body stop moving, as if he was hanging on something. Looking down, he saw a flaming claw protruding from his chest, holding a heart, as if it was placed in front of him for him to see. Then, his vision blurred, and he lost consciousness. In the midst of Zhu Xianxian's angry roar, Luo Xiaohan turned into ashes, which were blown away by the wind. A storage pouch was caught by Yu Qianqiu, who threw it into his own. Countless people's faces changed. What a powerful fire spell. Everyone was shocked. This Yu Qianqiu really dared to kill. Wasn't he making an enemy out of the Luo sect? Did he really think that he could fight against the Luo sect alone? He was simply courting death. However, the demonic cultivators, starting from Qiu Wuyuan, applauded and cheered. It was impossible for Yu Qianqiu to stay in the righteous sections. A lone cultivator was also weak, so if he wanted to live in peace, he would have to join the demonic sections. How could the demonic cultivators not be happy when they thought about how they would have such a person? Yu Qianqiu, who could control the intensity of the fire with ease and suppress the temperature of the fire, pretended to hold up Luo Xiaohan's bloody heart in front of Zhu Xianxian. Under Zhu Xianxian's furious gaze, the heart was annihilated with the wind. At that moment, 6 flying swords were already flying towards them. Yu Qianqiu faced the sky and let out a long roar. He spread his arms, and his entire body became like the mouth of a spring. Endless raging flames rushed out from his body, surging in all directions like the sea. The flames were monstrous and engulfed the 6 flying swords in an instant. The 6 cultivators immediately felt that they had lost contact with their flying swords. There was no time to think. Running for their lives was more important. The sea of fire was already rushing towards them. However, the speed of the 6 people who had lost their flying swords could not keep up with the speed of the sea of fire. In the blink of an eye, the sea of fire engulfed the 6 people who were scared out of their wits, leaving behind 6 incomparably painful screams that spread in the wilderness. The surrounding people were immediately startled by the surging flames. Could it be that this madman wanted to kill everyone at the same time? Just as everyone was about to escape, the sea of fire quickly retracted. Even the flames on the surrounding vegetation were retracted. When the monstrous flames were retracted back into Yu Qianzhou's body, not a single spark could be seen on the ground. Following that, the flames were retracted. It was a miraculous sight. As for the 6 cultivators who had been swallowed by the sea of fire, there was no longer any trace of them. It was obvious that they had been reduced to ashes. With the crisis averted, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. However, they could not imagine that such a huge and unparalleled flame could be hidden in a person's body. It was simply unimaginable. They were all shocked by the scene just now. A core formation cultivator killed 7 nascent soul cultivators just like that? Brother Yu, you're amazing. Qiu Wuyuan gave a thumbs up to Yu Qianzhou, who was still standing in a ball of fire in the air. The people from Devil Dao cheered wildly. However, the people from the Righteous Dao felt it was a pity. They all looked towards Fu Xian Island. Why did they expel such a powerful disciple from the sect? Actually, how could Quan Deming feel good in his heart? But what could he say? He could only sigh in his heart. He was originally an outstanding disciple that the sect was prepared to nurture. If it wasn't for Ong Guangzeng. Sigh. Actually, this disciple didn't do anything wrong to Fu Xian Island. If they knew that Ong Guangzeng's sect would be exterminated, the 4 shopkeepers of the shops of the 4 major clans didn't understand why the 4 clan heads valued Yu Qianzhou so much. But now, it seemed that the 4 clan heads already knew about it. The 4 of them couldn't help but look at each other. Yan Zixia looked at Yu Qianzhou with a complicated expression. However, her father and brother's eyes flashed with a strange light as if they saw a treasure. Yu Qianzhou stared coldly at Zhu Xianxian and said emotionlessly, "Elder Zhu, is this duel fair? If you think it's unfair, why don't you teach me a few moves? I'm willing to learn from you." His tone was calm, but it carried a domineering aura of contempt. He was clearly challenging Zhu Xianxian. Everyone was shocked. A core formation stage cultivator wanted to challenge an elder of Deluo sect, who was in the early stage of tribulation passing. Wasn't he too arrogant? But then they thought about it. Who knew what other secrets this fire spell had? Who knew if there was a more powerful killer move? Otherwise, Yu Qianzhou wouldn't be so arrogant. Brother Yu, you're so brave. I can feast my eyes on you again. Haha. Qiu Wuyuan gave a thumbs up and laughed. He turned his head and shouted, "Zhu Xianxian, don't let me down." The people of Diabolism immediately followed suit. Everyone's eyes were focused on Zhu Xianxian. Hearing this, Zhu Xianxian's expression changed. After a long time, he said in a low voice, "Do you think I'm a member of your Diabolism? I won't bully the weak." After saying this, he turned around and left, floating toward the entrance of the 100 Flowers Valley. The people of Diabolism immediately booed. Some people cursed him for being hypocritical and shameless. Hearing the curses behind him, Zhu Xianxian looked calm on the surface, but his heart was bleeding. Daluo's sect had lost a lot of face today, but he didn't have the slightest confidence that he could defeat Yu Qianzhou. Anyone who saw the monstrous flames just now would be terrified. Gambling with his life was not worth it. Daluo sect is only a... Yu Qianzhou's words drifted over, almost causing him to vomit blood. He resisted the urge to turn back and quickly entered the 100 Flowers Valley. In fact, Zhu Xianxian didn't know that Yu Qianzhou secretly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Zhu Xianxian had really left. That raging flame technique had consumed most of the fire element stored in his body. Without the support of the fire element, it was impossible for Yu Qianzhou to use the powerful fire art. If Zhu Xianxian turned back now, Yu Qianzhou could only escape. Unfortunately, the monstrous flames just now had already shocked the former. Yu Qianzhou looked around, and the raging flames outside his body were all retracted back into his body. His gaze landed on the child standing between Dongua Su and his wife, and he directly flew over on his sword. After landing, he sheathed his sword. He stared at Hong Qi and said with a faint smile, "Do you still recognize me?" Chapter 251. Lil Hongqi's lips twitched. He was obviously a little excited. His master's technique just now was simply too spectacular. His eyes sparkled, and he looked back at his grandfather as if he wanted to say something. In the past, His grandfather had warned him more than once not to let others know that he had a master. Now that his master had come to him, he didn't know how to answer. When Hongqi first became his disciple, because Yu Qianchou was still a disciple of Fuxian Island, Dongguasu was quite satisfied. Later on, Yu Qianchou became the public enemy of the Cultivation Alliance, which made Dongguasu's heart jump. He was afraid that he would be implicated, so he often warned his grandson not to tell others about his master. Now that Yu Qianchou had made a strong appearance and publicly found them in front of everyone, it was obvious that he wanted to expose this hidden disciple. He had seen everything that happened at the scene. Yu Qianchou's connections and strength were enough to protect his grandson. If he could learn that powerful fire technique, it would be beneficial for him for life. How could Dongguasu have any objections? He immediately smiled and nodded at his grandson. Lil Hongqi's face lit up. He knelt on the ground with a plop and kowtowed. Disciple Hongqi greets master. I thought you were angry at master for not looking for you for a long time. Yu Qianchou helped him up and smiled faintly. He rubbed Lil Hongqi's head and sized him up. He frowned and said, only level 5 Qi refinement, a little slow. You have to work hard. When you reach the foundation building stage, master will pass the Star Flame Fire technique to you. Star Flame Fire technique? Lil Hongqi widened his eyes and asked, is that the technique master used just now? Yu Qianchou opened his palm, and a ball of flame ignited in his palm. It instantly condensed into a bright red firebird that fluttered in his palm. Of course, he had already restrained the temperature, or else little Hongqi would not be able to withstand it. Yu Qianchou smiled. Yes, this is the Star Flame Fire technique that master created. If you want to cultivate it, you have to work hard to improve your cultivation. Hongqi looked at the cheerful firebird, and his eyes lit up. He nodded. Master, I will definitely work hard to improve my cultivation. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. They didn't know if what Yu Qianchou said was true or false. Such a heaven-defying technique was actually created by him. That was an incredible talent. The people of Supporting Immortal Island, especially Quan Deming, already knew that Yu Qianchou was talented. When he was on Supporting Immortal Island, he had created his own alchemy technique. Later on, he even modified the Gui Yuan sword technique to cultivate. They didn't expect that he could also create such a powerful fire technique. In other words, it was a great loss for Supporting Immortal Island to expel Ong Guangceng from the sect. Although everyone was shocked, they still envied the young Hongqi the most. With a master like this, his future was bound to be boundless. Dongguasu and his wife looked at each other, and they were pleasantly surprised. They were surprised because they didn't know if Yu Qianchou would be able to avoid the revenge of the Exalted Sect, and they were delighted because so long as Yu Qianchou was able to deal with the Exalted Sect, then their grandson's future would be bright. This was truly a bet that was difficult to choose. This kind of mentality was probably a common problem of parents. Haha. Brother Yu, since when did you accept a disciple? Qiu Wuyuan laughed heartily. Behind him were the siblings Yan Bugui and Yan Zixia, as well as a group of ambitious and ruthless people. Yu Qianchou retracted the firebird in his palm. He glanced at the people of Supporting Immortal Island and said with a smile, I accepted him previously. I wanted to bring him back to Supporting Immortal Island, but who knew that even I would be expelled from Supporting Immortal Island? Coincidentally, the fire art I comprehended was at a critical juncture. I didn't have time to care about him, so I let him cultivate on his own at such a young age. These words almost made Quan Deming and the others vomit blood. It turned out that this guy was already comprehending this overbearing fire art when he was expelled from the sect. If he wasn't expelled from the sect, wouldn't Supporting Immortal Island have another peerless art? The people of Supporting Immortal Island were depressed. The people from other sects also looked at them as if they were looking at fools. Qiu Wuyuan also glanced at the people of Supporting Immortal Island when he heard this. He rejoiced inwardly. Fortunately, that group of idiots had expelled Yu Qianchou from the sect. Otherwise, if Supporting Immortal Island had such a tyrannical technique, wouldn't the demonic path be suppressed? However, Qiu Wuyuan was in a good mood today. The Luo sect had suffered a loss, Supporting Immortal Island had lost face, and even the entire righteous path had lost face. He couldn't help but laugh. Brother Yu, you don't need to lower yourself to those people's level. If you are interested, my 10,000 demons will welcome you with open doors. As long as you are willing to join my 10,000 demons, I guarantee that you won't have to suffer from those cowards. Hearing this, the people of the evil path's eyes brightened. They all sent out warm invitations. My blood demon palace warmly welcomes you. The corpse sect awaits your arrival. The invitations of the evil path sects immediately changed the faces of the righteous path sections. I appreciate everyone's good intentions. However, after experiencing 2 sects, I have suffered a lot of cowardice. From now on, I don't want to join any sects of the righteous path or the evil path. I just want to be independent. Yu Qianchou clasped his hands at everyone and asked Hongqi, Hongqi, are you willing to accompany Master to travel around the world? Yes. Hongqi nodded. He didn't know what was good or bad. He just agreed based on his intuition. Yu Qianchou smiled satisfactorily. In fact, there was no need to travel around the world with him. It was just to deal with people's rejection. He then said to Dongguosu and his wife, Today, I will take Hongqi with me. Are you two willing? The two looked at each other. Although they were reluctant, they still bowed together and said, Thank you, sir. Seeing that he didn't want to join the evil path, the people of the evil path were a little disappointed. However, they didn't force him. The righteous path also felt a little comfortable. Brother Yu. Seeing that they were almost done talking, Yan Xueqi interrupted and pointed to the old man beside him and introduced, This is my father. Yu Qianchou sized up the old man in front of him with a serious expression. Sure enough, he had the air of a formidable character. He immediately bowed and said, I've long heard of Senior Yan's great name. It is my honor to be able to meet you today. Haha. Yu Qianchou, you are friends with my junior brother and Xing. There is no need to be so polite. Yan Bugui waved his hand and said with a smile, My 100-flower palace doesn't belong to the righteous path or the evil path. We have always been neutral. Since you are not interested in the righteous path or the evil path, why don't you come to my 100-flower palace? Although my 100-flower palace isn't a big sect, it can more or less avoid some trouble. Yu Qianchou, are you interested? Hearing that, Yan Zixia's eyes flickered indeterminately. On the other hand, Dongguosu and his wife were looking forward to it. If Yu Qianchou joined the 100-flower palace, then they wouldn't have to be separated from their grandson. The other sects were stunned. Could it be that the 100-flower palace will take advantage of him in the end? But that's good. It's a good thing as long as this person doesn't fall into the hands of the evil path. Yu Qianchou's heart skipped a beat. He rubbed his nose and didn't answer for a long time. His face was full of smiles as his gaze swept back and forth between the Yan father and son. When his gaze fell into their eyes, he instantly felt as if all his secrets were seen through. Yan Bugui coughed lightly and broke the awkwardness. There is no hurry to answer. Why don't you stay in the 100 Flowers Valley and think about it slowly? Ha! Yu Qianchou chuckled lightly and shook his head. The 100-flower palace is neither righteous nor evil, so it's a good place to go. Unfortunately, Senior Yan and Brother Yan are both people who do great things. I've said that I only want to be independent, so I truly don't dare to get involved in your matters. The others didn't think much of it and thought that it was just Yu Qianchou's excuse. However, Quan Deming from Fuxian Isle suddenly stared at the father and son pair. Yan Bugui and Yan Xueqing's expressions changed, and the latter's gaze burned with anticipation. Brother Yu, what do you mean? Why don't I understand? Brother Yan, do you really want me to make it clear in front of all the sects? That isn't good, right? Yu Qianchou replied with a question, and then he shook his head and sighed. What if I make it difficult for your 100-flower palace? Wouldn't it hurt the friendship between us? His words had already put the 100-flower palace in a difficult position. If he didn't say it, all the sects would definitely think that the 100-flower palace was hiding something, and they couldn't help but associate it with the 100-flower palace. Say it. If he really knew something, then it was something that couldn't be exposed. Yu Qianchou, just say what you want to say. Don't make everyone suspicious. Yan Bugui frowned. But you better not speak nonsense. My 100-flower palace isn't that easy to mess with. As expected, the older the wiser. His words not only smoothed things over, but also contained a half-threat. Everyone was puzzled, and only Quan Deming's face was gloomy. Yu Qianchou raised his brows, and he snorted. Senior Yan, I can distinguish the severity of some things, and I know what to say and what not to say. But I hate it when people threaten me the most. There was a hint of coldness in his words. Yu Qianqiu turned his gaze to Quan Deming, and he shook his head and sighed. Elder Quan, I've always thought that Fu Xian Island was really the strongest sect in the cultivation world. But some time ago, I accidentally learned some things, and then I realized that there's always someone better than you. Some hidden forces are the real number one in the world. Sigh. Looks like the cultivation world is going to be chaotic soon. Someone wants to unify the righteous and demonic sects, and become the first person in history. Ong Guangzheng is a good example. I don't want to get involved in these things, so it's better for me to stay away from them, so that I won't be affected. Chapter 252. It was easy to imagine the commotion caused by his words. As long as one wasn't an idiot, they would be able to understand what he meant. According to what he said, there was a hidden force in the cultivation world that was even more powerful than supporting Xian Island. This force wanted to unify the entire cultivation world. Ong Guangzheng was killed by it, and this force was secretly controlled by Baihua Palace. Everyone had different expressions. They were both doubtful and in disbelief. Actually, if these words were said during normal times, the father and son of the Yen clan wouldn't have taken it to heart. They would just push the blame onto others and push the blame onto others. Who could do anything to them if there was no evidence? Unfortunately, the supporting Immortal Island had suddenly barged in and fought with them. Others might not know what Yu Qianqiu was talking about, but the supporting Immortal Island had suffered a loss, so how could they not know? The worst thing was that even if they were stronger than the supporting Immortal Island, the key to determining their strength was the number of experts at the final stage of the crossing tribulation stage. They only had 4 experts, while the supporting Immortal Island had at least 20 experts. These 20 experts were the key to establishing the supporting Immortal Island as the #1 expert in the world. It didn't matter if Yu Qianqiu knew about it or not. But one thing was for sure. This guy pretended to be innocent, but he was actually looking for trouble on purpose. Otherwise, he wouldn't have exaggerated the matter. Yen Bugue was furious. Yu Qianqiu, you are obviously slandering Baihua Palace. What are your intentions? Humph. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. I don't have any intentions, and I didn't mention your Baihua Palace by name. I don't think Baihua Palace's lord knows about this. He later asked Xueqi Kong about some details. He guessed that it was done secretly by the Yen father and son, and Baihua Fairy didn't know about it. Baihua Palace controlled a group of powerful forces, but Baihua Palace's lord didn't know about it. This was a bit strange. 10,000 demons. Qiu Wuyuan's eyelids twitched. He looked at Yen Bugue suspiciously. Could this be a trap set up by the sect that even I don't know about? He couldn't help but think of the oath he made when Ong Guangzheng's clan was destroyed. If it was really related to 10,000 demons, wouldn't he die a horrible death? Supporting Immortal Island's Quan Deming's eyes flickered. He also suspected that this was the Palace of Myriad Demons plot. If what Yu Qianqiu said was true, how could Baihua Fairy, as the Palace Lord of Baihua Palace, not know about it? Wasn't this clearly showing that the one surnamed Yen was guarding against supporting Immortal Island? Or rather, targeting supporting Immortal Island? Yen Zixia bit her lips. First of all, because of her relationship with Yu Qianqiu, she more or less believed what he said. Second of all, she had been in Baihua Palace for so many years. She had noticed that her father and brother had done something behind her mother's back, so it was possible. In short, the more Yu Qianqiu didn't explain it clearly, the more suspicious everyone would be. Yen Zhuixing roared almost crazily. Yu Qianqiu, are you crazy? When did Baihua Palace offend you? Why are you trying to frame Baihua Palace? He knew what the consequences would be if this was confirmed. Not to mention the attacks from all the sects. If his mother found out that he and his father had done such a thing behind her back, the family would probably fall apart. Yu Qianqiu secretly sneered. Damn it! Everyone is hiding in the dark, relying on their own abilities to make a living. You could have pretended to be anyone, but you had to pretend to be my hero. If I don't teach you a lesson, who else should I teach? Now you know the pain of being framed? Not to mention, I'm not just framing you. Brother Yen, who are you saying is crazy? Do you really want me to shed all pretense of cordiality and spill everything? Yu Qianqiu's tone was cold. He wanted to seize the opportunity to ignite the fire, wishing for the whole world to be in chaos. Actually, he didn't realize that ever since he gained some strength, he was much more daring in doing things. Yen Bugui was indeed a wily old fox. He had already figured out what was going on. This Yu Qianqiu really did know a lot of things, and he was deliberately trying to find fault with him. If he picked up the topic, he would not let it go. Right now, the best thing to do was not to argue with him. The more he argued, the more he would be at a disadvantage. If there was anything, they could talk about it later. It was not the time to settle things in front of all the sections. He immediately blocked his son who was about to go crazy and said coldly, "There will be a day when the right and wrong will be clear. Why are you arguing so much now? Let's go." "Stop," Yu Qianqiu shouted. He wouldn't let the Yen father and son go so easily. Since he had already dragged them off the boat, the enmity between them was already set in stone. How could he not use the pole of the boat to stab them a few more times? It would be best if he could drown the enemy. "What else do you want?" Yen Bugui turned around and asked. He was suppressing the anger in his chest and came out to watch the show. He didn't expect that his clothes would be stripped off, and now he was the focus of the crowd. How could he say anything? If there weren't so many people present, he would have killed Yu Qianqiu long ago. Yu Qianqiu laughed coldly. "There are some things I don't want to say, but since someone called me crazy, then I have to make it clear. As for whether I'm crazy or not, let everyone judge after I'm done." Everyone stared at Yu Qianqiu, obviously waiting for him to finish. Yen Bugui's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know what else he would say. He shouted angrily, "Who wants to listen to your nonsense? Get lost. My 100 Flowers Valley doesn't welcome you." "Wait." Quan Deming walked over, a smile on his face as he said, "Brother Yen, there's no need to get angry. We're all bored anyway, so there's no harm in listening. I don't believe his words anyway. I just want to hear what he has to say." "That's right, there's no harm in listening." Many people followed. If Yen Bugui continued to hide, it would be obvious that he was guilty. He snorted coldly and stopped talking. His mind was racing, thinking of a way to deal with it. Yu Qianqiu didn't care so much. He walked leisurely and said slowly, "Actually, after I was expelled from Fuxian Island, I didn't go anywhere else. I just cultivated in a mountain not far away from the 100 Flowers Valley. One day, when I was cultivating in a hidden place in the valley, a cave suddenly appeared on the opposite mountain wall. I saw hundreds of masked men in black coming out from it. There was also a young palace master with them. Because I knew that young palace master, although I was a little suspicious of their mysterious actions, I didn't do anything. After all, I wasn't in a good situation at that time." Everyone's eyes immediately focused on Yen Xueqi. Yen Xueqi was so angry that he trembled. However, Yu Qianqiu didn't mention his name. If he jumped out now, it would be no different from giving himself away. Quan Deming's face was gloomy. He asked, "What happened after that?" Yu Qianqiu paused and continued, "But the next day, I heard the news that Ong Guangceng was attacked by hundreds of men in black. I was suspicious at that time, so I hid in the valley to observe. I even wanted to run into the cave to find out what was going on. Who knew that I was blocked by some strange formation? I really couldn't go in, so I hid and continued to observe. Sure enough, a few days later, hundreds of people came out from the cave. However, they were all dressed in white, and the number was less than the men in black. After they came out of the cave, they secretly hurried to the east. Although their cultivation was very high, they obviously didn't dare to be too ostentatious. So I followed them. None of you would believe what I saw later." Everyone was listening attentively. He stopped again. As a result, even Qiu Wuyuan couldn't help but ask, "Brother Yu, what did you see?" "There's no harm in telling us." Yu Qianqiu nodded and said, "These people actually went out of the sea. I secretly followed them all the way to an island. There were cultivators everywhere on the island, and I estimated that there were more than 10,000 of them. What surprised me the most was that even though I was in the middle stage of the core formation realm, I didn't see anyone with a cultivation level lower than mine. Moreover, I occasionally saw people who could use teleportation. It was clear that they had reached the late stage of the transcending tribulation. Fortunately, my body was different from ordinary people, so it was hard to be discovered. Otherwise, with their cultivation, I would have been discovered long ago, and I wouldn't have been able to return. At that time, I hid in a rock and happened to hear two people talking. It turned out that there really were more than 10,000 people on the island. The earliest people had been here for nearly 150 years. They were all kidnapped by someone using the natal primordial spirit stripping technique. Among them, there were individual cultivators and disciples from various sects in the cultivation world. I was secretly surprised, but who knew that I would hear a shocking secret later, which scared me even more. Chapter 253. Wasn't the natal primordial spirit stripping technique lost a long time ago? Xueqi's face darkened. This technique was a nightmare for cultivators, regardless of whether they were righteous or evil. Once they were controlled, they wouldn't be able to resist at all and would be at the mercy of others. Everyone's face changed. They didn't expect such a thing to appear. The father and son of the Yen family didn't look good either. They didn't know if it was because of Yu Qianzhou's nonsense or because his secret was exposed. Quan Deming glanced at him. He was more concerned about what would happen next. He asked in a deep voice, "Yu Qianzhou, what's the secret?" Yu Qianzhou looked in a certain direction and smiled bitterly with lingering fear. "To be honest, I'm afraid that after I say it, someone will kill me today. I'm not afraid of ordinary people, but the hidden strength of that person is too strong. If he sends two experts at the final stage of passing tribulation, I'm afraid I won't be able to keep my life." "Go ahead and say it. I'll make it clear today. I don't care about other places, but here, anyone who wants your life will have to go through my supporting immortal island first. Unless everyone in my supporting immortal island dies, no one will be able to touch a single hair of yours. Don't worry and speak boldly." After Quan Deming finished speaking, a few disciples of supporting Xian Island immediately guarded around Yu Qianzhou. They looked around like tigers watching their prey. "Hey, I'm relieved with Elder Quan's words." Yu Qianzhou sighed and continued. "Those two said that they attacked the spirit stone mines of Daluo sect and Ong Guangceng to test their coordination. After killing Ong Guangceng, the master felt that it was enough and made a plan to unify the cultivation world. He wanted to create some trouble between supporting Xian Island and the 10,000 demons. It would be best if the two sects fought each other. As long as the two sects were in chaos, the righteous and evil sects would be in chaos. When the strength of the cultivation world was almost exhausted, we could seize the opportunity and use the natal primordial spirit stripping technique to firmly control the cultivation world." After listening to them, I jumped in fright. I didn't dare to stay there any longer. After the two people who were talking left, I sneaked back into the room. But I have a bad habit. I can't control my curiosity. Later, I couldn't help but sneak into the valley and witness a great battle. At this point, Quan Deming had already guessed what he was going to say. His face was gloomy and he didn't say anything. Xueqi couldn't help but ask, "Don't stop, brother Yu. Who fought who? Tell me." Yu Qianzhou nodded with a wry smile. "One day, I was hiding there when I saw Elder Dongfang of supporting Xian Island leading 50 crossing tribulation elders to the valley. I thought it was strange. What were the people of supporting Xian Island doing here? Who knew that they would spend some effort to break the formation protecting the cave? After they entered, I heard the sounds of a fierce battle. I didn't know what was going on inside, but if you want to know, you should ask Elder Dongfang. When I was outside, I saw another scene. There was another entrance to the cave. While they were fighting inside, another entrance covered by a formation appeared on the other side. The young palace lord was quickly escorted away by two people. It seems like the people from Fuxian Island suffered some losses in the cave. More than 50 elders went in, but only a dozen came out. It was Elder Dongfang who held a golden spear and fought desperately to protect the others from escaping. Elder Dongfang then retreated while fighting and flew towards 100 Flower Valley. This happened a few days ago. I don't know what happened after that. Dongfang Chang'ao? Golden Origin Spear? Supporting Xian Island lost dozens of crossing tribulation elders? Damn. Why haven't I heard of this before? Xueqi scratched his head and turned to ask, "Quan Deming, brother, you doesn't look like a liar. Don't tell me you don't know what happened in supporting Xian Island. Is this true or not?" Quan Deming looked at the father and son of the Yen family and sneered. "Yes, it's true." Yu Qianzhou didn't say a word. My supporting Xian Island was wondering who sent so many experts to kill more than 30 crossing tribulation stage elders of my supporting Xian Island. It turns out that someone has been plotting for more than 100 years to unify the cultivation world. Xueqi, the eyes of your myriad demons palace are growing on your buttocks. You almost got tricked by your own people without even realizing it. Previously, he was worried that the 10,000 demons were behind this. But after hearing what Yu Qianchou said, it turned out that someone didn't want to let the 10,000 demons go. Zhou Yuan was stunned by his words. Unless Yu Qianchou was talking nonsense, but part of the process had been confirmed by Quan Deming, so it shouldn't be fake. He looked at his senior brother and didn't know what to say. The surrounding people were in an uproar and disgust. They didn't expect someone to set up such a big conspiracy. But supporting Xian Island and the 10,000 demons were behind the 100 Flowers Palace. It wasn't up to the other sects to decide how to deal with it. Yu Qianchou, on the other hand, looked much more relaxed now that he had said what was on his mind. The Yen family's father and son looked gloomy. Only the two of them knew that Yu Qianchou was obviously tricking them. Putting aside the other flaws, how could they not know whether they were the ones who robbed Daluo sect and Ong Kwangsung's spirit stone mine? If this wasn't framing them, then what was? But this guy actually knew a lot of things, especially about the battle between Dongfang Chang'ao and the people in the valley. Supporting Xian Island was the first to believe it. Yen Bugui looked around and said in a deep voice, "Why are you all looking at us? Even if what Yu Qianchou said is true, did he say that we were the ones who did it?" Everyone was stunned. They didn't expect Yen Bugui to deny it even now. Zhou Yuan didn't expect his senior brother to be so shameless. Quan Deming sneered, "Yu Qianchou, since you've said it like this, why don't you just tell us who the mastermind is?" Yu Qianchou, don't go overboard with your nonsense. Yen Bugui's tone and expression were clearly threatening the witness. Just say what you want. No one will dare to do anything to you. Quan Deming said in disdain. Yu Qianchou's gaze paused on Yen Zixia. After a long time he shook his head and sighed, "I've forgotten who the mastermind is." Everyone was stunned. Yen Bugui laughed and said, "I already said this has nothing to do with us, but you don't believe me. Humph. Let's go." The members of the Flower Palace flashed through the sky with swagger. Only Yen Zixia glanced deeply at Yu Qianchou before she left. She probably thought that Yu Qianchou had intentionally let them off for her sake. Everyone didn't know what Yu Qianchou was up to. It wouldn't make sense if he said he was afraid of Yen Bugui. As long as he testified, they wouldn't let him go. Letting him go would be the most dangerous thing. Yu Qianchou sneered to himself. What good does it do me if you catch him? I've forced him into a dead end and left him a way out. As long as he's not an idiot, he'll run away the moment he returns to White Flower Valley. By then, the tens of thousands of people in his hands will be of great use. It should be enough to stir up chaos in the cultivation world. Chaos is good. I like it. Why didn't you say it? Quan Deming frowned. Are you afraid that Fuxian Island can't protect you? He had already prepared an excuse for this. He shook his head and sneered. Protect me? Even if that's the case, Fuxian Island has already abandoned me once when I was in danger and needed protection the most. How can I trust them? Zhou Yuan looked him up and down and asked doubtfully, "Are you that afraid of death? From what I know, you've always been bold." Times have changed. I thought I had a good master who could protect me. Now, I have to rely on myself. How can I not be careful? I still want to live for 2 more years. Yu Qianchou mocked himself. He took out a jade archive and handed it to Quan Deming, saying, "This is the route I memorized when I went to that island the last time. If you want to go there, you must be careful. That island is truly filled with experts. It's not a lie. If Senior Chiu is interested, you can make a copy and take a look." "All right, this is all I can do." Wait. Quan Deming had a question that he wanted to clarify. This matter was very important to Fuxian Island, so he stopped him and asked, "You just said that Bai Hua Palace Lord probably doesn't know about this. What makes you so sure that Bai Hua Fairy doesn't know about this?" Not to mention him, even Zhou Yuan wanted to clarify this matter. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.